Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Monday morning. Oh, man. How was that for a little post-Christmas chaos? There are so many things to get to. Utah Jazz, what are you doing? Trying to go to the playoffs? And the NFL playoffs are pretty much set. There's a few dramatic games. Of course, the Aaron Rodgers soap opera goes into Sunday night. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Winner gets the NFC North title and probably the right to lose their first playoff game, but whatever. We can get to all that. That was a heck of a Niners-Bears game in primetime. My gosh, that was wild. But, of course, everything is trumped by Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. Oh, he looks so weird in blue. And he wrapped up a press conference with "Go Blue." Okay. Wow. Where to start? There are so many stories. You know, I got to give Kyle credit for threading the needle and telling the truth. Okay, I'm going to step down. And then when he does his media availability, I'm in the transfer portal. So, you know, not totally surprising. I did think that Michigan had to be getting to him at some point, right? Okay, you want DeBoer at Alabama. I get it. The guy wins so much. You want Dillingham. I mean, he could be a younger Whittingham. You know, and the problem with hiring Kyle is, what are you going to have him, 3 to 5 years? And then what, you know, and Dillingham could have had 10, 15, 20 years, I mean, whatever, who knows? The possibilities would have been there, even though coaching seems more volatile these days. But when those two didn't want it, and Jed Fish, he had a history of handling a quarterback and, keeping Delora on the field and all that. And Michigan's had multiple scandals that they are, that in all seriousness, academically, they are one of the top public institutions in the country. I mean, the private schools, the Stanfords and the Harvards and the Yales and all that, right? But you get to the public schools in Michigan and Cal and UCLA, and, there's a small handful of them, and probably even somebody out. It's right up there. And to have not one, not two, 3 scandals, pretty salacious, just like, man, there are a lot of people in Michigan who don't like that. So they need someone who comes in with a rock-solid reputation and a long history of not having drama, not having legal issues, not having embarrassing stuff. So I just didn't see how much longer they could wait to get to Kyle. I mean, how many more names could be in front of him none, him. And now the ripple effect. I mean, it takes zero imagination to see Beck going as his offensive coordinator and to see Jay Hill as his defensive coordinator. They're working on that. What kind of language is in Jay's contract? How expensive is it to get him out of it? How is that written? He's at a private school, so you can't grandma that. Most of these contracts are public, and you can see what the buyouts are and how they go down over time and all that kind of stuff. But when you hear Kyle say we're working on it, it didn't leave me with the impression that it wasn't going to get done. It left me with the impression it was going to get done. And then I think the position coaches are super interesting and some key players. I don't think it'll be wholesale, if for no other reason than Michigan's got a good team. They're 9-3 now, kind of a soft Big Ten schedule, and it gets much harder the next 2 years. Indiana and Oregon rotate on for back-to-back games, so they're going to have to play 4 playoff teams next year. At least next year they play 4 teams that are currently playoff teams, and with guys going to the NFL and the transfer portal, who knows how good teams will be year to year. But I think we assume that Indiana and Oregon are going to be good again next year, and the other 2 teams, Ohio State and Oklahoma, it looks like a tough schedule. This 9-3 was a little softer. But nonetheless, they got some good players. The arrow seems up there. So I don't think he needs to, I don't think he needs to take a lot of players from Utah or BYU. It's also ridiculous to think that he wouldn't take any, And what does that leave you? He's probably taking the best players and best recruits. We'll see how that plays out. And maybe with some of the recruits, they do play a year here, and then Kyle's trying to get them in the transfer portal in another year. Have to see how that works out. Position coaches, who does Jay, traditionally coordinators get a say in hiring some of the position coaches. Now, Kyle's got to retain a couple people, and he said that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I did talk to one person I know who's way into Michigan football, who says that strongest coaches on the staff are the defensive coordinator and the running backs coach, and that they were really good at running back, which, I think Utah's got a pretty good running back, and I'd be a little stressed about losing Parker. But if they got good running backs, maybe that takes some of the pressure off there. Who will Jay Hill want off the defense? I mean, Satuala looked awesome, and he's only a freshman, so that would be one obvious one. But, as much as people are getting wound up about it, and I get it, I mean, this is a big story, and there's a lot of energy and emotion around these people. People are either attached, either loving them or hating them, and I get that. But to a certain degree, this stuff was going to happen anyway. And why do I say that? Because it just happened. Utah lost a run-stopping defensive tackle, high-profile to BYU, went down there and played well. And BYU lost a guy who, for reasons that aren't clear to me, didn't play a lot and didn't make a big impact, and he went up and seemed to be getting a sack pretty much every quarter at Utah. It was unreal. So why does one defensive lineman go one way and one go another? Who's to say? Personal relationships matter. Coaches have their favorites, and they get fired up about some guys and down on others. And even if they aren't, the players think they are, and they move off of that. So some of this was just going to happen anyway. And then with Beck gone, what is Morgan Scalley going to do for a coordinator? Does he want to hold on to somebody who knows Beck's offense, given the fact that so many skill players return? Or does he want to go with someone he's got a long-term relationship with? Does he want to try to pry A-Rod away from BYU? Because obviously they coached together for a long time, and clearly what we're seeing with all these guys is they all stick together. But A-Rod's got a relationship with Kalani, so maybe he just wants to stay there. He's got a freshman quarterback who's on fire. But on the other hand, there's a good-looking freshman quarterback up at Utah too with Ficklin. So I don't know what to tell you. And here's another question, and this is super intriguing to me. Now, Beck's offense was good at New Mexico, and it was really good at Utah. But Utah's offensive line was stacked. They had 2 first-round draft picks, and they had veterans at both the center and both guard positions. So would that offense work as well next year with a line that has to be completely rebuilt? And is the answer to that, well, I don't know, DJ, how are they going to rebuild it? Great question. Everything changes very quickly in college football these days. We know that the way coaches move and the way players move. But this was an extra dash of secret sauce this weekend. My gosh, it got spicy fast. And now, I've seen all the social media. There's so many other storylines in that. Is Utah going to look foolish? Well, I think this story diverges here and goes 2 ways. One, obviously, if Morgan struggles and they're 4, 5, 6 win team for whatever reason, and maybe they just don't have enough money, and maybe they get hit by injuries the way they used to 2 years ago. I mean, there could be all kinds of things, right? Or maybe just Morgan just struggles. There could be lots of storylines. But if they do struggle, and if Kyle goes to Michigan and wins big, it's going to be like, you pushed out a sure thing, and now you got egg all over your face. Your guy looked good because he was under Kyle's wing, and he couldn't look bad because Kyle's so good and he knows what he's doing. I mean, certainly that's a potential storyline out there, and you people have left that all over our social media. So I know it's occurred to a lot of you, but I don't think that's the way to look at it. I don't think it's so much about what Kyle does, because whatever he does at Michigan, we know what he was likely to do at Utah. And he will be judged differently in Michigan because they have more advantages and they have higher expectations. More Big Ten teams get into the playoffs. Michigan's got the money and the history and all that. So Kyle's not only going to be expected to go to the playoffs, he's going to be expected to win once he gets there. And he knows that, and that's why he took the job. He said Michigan was one of the few jobs he'd go after. So this is all, self-evident stuff. I think the whole Utah situation gets judged less on what Kyle does and more on what Morgan does. If they win, great. If they don't, it doesn't matter if they both win. It doesn't matter if they both lose. What matters is, does Utah win? If Utah wins, then this all makes sense. If Utah wins, even if Kyle goes and wins a national championship at Michigan, well, that's different than trying to win a national championship from Utah. It's just clear. The Big Ten has advantages the Big 12 teams don't have. So what Kyle does to me is the lesser part of the story. Not that we aren't going to follow it and we aren't going to be intrigued, because I know I am, and I can tell by the comments we see on social media, a lot of you are too. But I really think the judgment that falls on Utah, on Mark Harlan, and to a degree on the president, but mostly on the athletic director, it just has to do with whether Utah wins or not. If they win, everything else takes care of itself. And that is so often true in sports. You know, and if Kyle struggles, well, that's not going to matter if Morgan struggles. It's not. If Kyle struggles, there'll be unique challenges at Michigan, and the definition of struggle is different at Michigan. It's really just going to come down to, what does Morgan do? And I think it's really intriguing to see how he handles this offensive coordinator hire. Who do they have the money to go get? How much does he want to preserve this? I don't know what to call Beck's offense, but it seems like it's triple option with a ton of run-pass options built into it. And stacking is the word now. We got to stack days. We got to stack recruits. We got to stack recruiting classes. We got to stack wins. Well, I think that what Beck's offense did last year, and again, maybe mostly it was about the O-line, but I think the year before when he was in New Mexico shows the ability to stretch people sideline to sideline with the threat of the fly sweep, whether you give the receiver the ball or not, plus the QB run game, plus the running back, plus when he pulls it from the running back, maybe the QB runs, but also then the QB throws. So that chance to get numbers, overload somewhere, and hit them with so many options they just can't defend everything, how much of that do they keep? And how much they go back to more traditional? And, you know, Andy Ludwig, and I've seen some comments about Andy too, blows my mind. With Andy Ludwig, they went to the Rose Bowl twice. So I'm thinking he did a pretty good job. The results speak for themselves, but it was more traditional. And I really think what we saw with Beck's offense here reminded me a lot of what we saw with Urban Meyer. The ability to think we're going to stretch you downfield, but we're also going to stretch you sideline to sideline. And not even so much the stretching, it's just if that first step or two by a defensive lineman, by a linebacker, gives you a better blocking angle, it can make a guy who's really a B offensive lineman look like an A, or somebody who's totally average look above average. It does build in some advantages. And, man, that offense worked. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the defense with Morgan, it shouldn't change, right? It was Kyle's defense. It was his dad's defense. Morgan knows all about it. Morgan's had to adapt as the game has changed, but the core principles are there. And I think it's hard for any of us to believe the defense is going to change. So what's he going to do with offensive coordinator, and how much of what we saw with Beck are they going to hold on to? And that, to me, is an enormous part of the story and will probably define how we all look at the decision to say, hey, let's not lose Morgan. Let's force Kyle out. And I don't think there's any doubt he was forced out. And maybe that pays off. You know, if Morgan settles in and has a good 10-year run or more at Utah, then this is great. I mean, this isn't really on the board. It's not what we're talking about, but it clearly is on the board. It's not what we're talking about. But what if Morgan is really good? And I know he's a Utah guy, but the success of all the high school players in Utah and the success of the teams here led coaches from other schools to start recruiting Utah. Urban came back here and recruited. The entire Pac-12, when Utah started winning, the entire Pac-12 came here and started recruiting. The entire Mountain West Conference came here. Now the entire, well, not the entire, but a lot of the Big 12 comes here. And they've always come for players. But I wonder going forward if they're about to come for coaches. If Kyle's coaching tree is that good, what's next? And maybe this is it. Maybe this is a one-time event. But maybe we're about to see a lot more of this. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We still have to get to the Utah Jazz. We still have to get to BYU winning their bowl game. We will do that next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in. The Utah Jazz won. They beat Detroit. Then they turned around and beat San Antonio. I mean, the Spurs have just beaten the world champion Thunder twice. We're off to this great start. Spurs have won 8-9. And I was out of town traveling, seeing family on the East Coast. Didn't get to see all of the games. Man, when I saw the scores, the first thing I did was check the box score. All right, was Cade Cunningham out? No, he was not. All right, was Victor Wembanyama out? No, he was not. Okay, were Castle and Harper out? No, they were not. Okay, good wins. The funny thing is the bottom third of the league, we'll get into this later in the show, all these teams in the bottom third of the league, well, not all of the teams. Looking at you, Indiana, you're still second. But everybody else, the Nets, the Wizards, the Clippers have won 4 in a row. What is going on? We got all these teams that are 4-3 in their last 7, 7-3 in their last 10, 5-5 in their last 10. Everybody who'd just been completely awful, terrible, hideous, they're winning. Can't figure it out. So on the one hand, the Jazz are winning enough. If you're worried about losing the draft pick, I get it. You should be. It's in play. They could lose it. I know, and I have been told by people who are very well connected, they're not going to lose that pick. I got to say, even despite the fact the Jazz are 6-6 in the last 12 games, these other teams are winning, I could still see the Jazz finishing with the 6th worst record in the NBA. If they sit guys. But if they don't, it looks like they're coming. Keontae George is scoring, and he's not taken away from Markkanen. Markkanen scoring. These guys both seem to be 28, 29, 30, 31 points a game, bang, bang. And other guys are filling in. One night, Sensabaugh has a 20-point game. The next night, Walt Clayton Jr. can't miss. They got something going. Let's get to the best of the postgame show after the win over the Spurs.
Your Jazz recap here on DJ and PK 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott with you. What a weekend for the Utah Jazz. Game-winning shot from Keontae George Friday night to beat the Detroit Pistons. Then Saturday night on a super tight back-to-back, they go into San Antonio and beat the Spurs 127-114 behind 29 points from Lauri Markkanen. Keontae George added 28 to go along with 6 assists, and the Jazz get the unlikely back-to-back victories. Let's get some post-game sound and hear from Jazz head coach Will Hardy.
I want to talk about a few individuals before I get to some of the team stuff. I think this is very clearly Walt's best game as a pro. A lot of big shots, played with a ton of force, had some big defensive plays, showed some physicality on the ball defensively. It's been a tricky start to the season for Walt because of his minutes and opportunity. He's stayed ready. He has worked really hard. He's taken the coaching. But it's because of his approach. Like, Walt has recognized that this is his role on this team right now. I think he picked his spots tonight to be aggressive, obviously shot the ball great. And then Cody, I thought, gave us some spectacular minutes tonight. I thought defensively he was tremendous, stirring it up. Couple of big finishes around the rim, had some really nice drive and kick plays offensively, and it's not easy to do what Cody is doing. He's not in the rotation every night, and for him to stay ready and stay focused, his approach to understanding personnel and the game plan is elite, and Cody deserves a ton of credit because for him to play those minutes tonight, play almost 20 minutes, he ends up having 6 rebounds. I thought, again, his defense was tremendous. I think those two guys were outstanding. Nurk, Wembanyama turns in a good stat line from a point standpoint, but I thought that Nurk, his physicality, he did a really good job one-on-one with Wembanyama. Obviously, there are a lot of times where it takes our whole team to guard him, but I want to make sure that Nurk gets some credit. Keontae and Lauri, after the games they had last night, to step up the way they did. Again, you can't say enough about those two and what they're doing for our program. Their relationship, their play, the way they carry themselves is everything that we want to be about. And then for the team, it was a game where it felt like in the second half we had, a little bit of a cushion, but 10 points in the NBA now with the three-point line is nothing. San Antonio made their run. The building went crazy. And I think, again, our team is showing a lot of poise for how many young players we have on the court. It was 108, and we end the game 19-6. It's not easy to do that, especially on the road, but we've seen this a bunch of times this year where in close games our team is not afraid. They don't look scattered. They're very connected, and they're stepping up and making a lot of big plays. So I'm so proud of our group. and I want our guys and our fans to enjoy this win.
Going back to Walt for a minute, for a guy who's a shooter, before he got those 2 3-pointers to get to his shot, why is it so important for him to kind of drive and go add pressure to the rim to kind of maybe get into rhythm?
Yeah, I think Walt can shoot, but he's actually more of a scorer. And I think when you come into the NBA and you are a role player, but you can shoot, people focus on how many threes you're getting off, shooting a lot of catch and shoots, you're playing off the ball. And I thought tonight was a better representation of how Walt can impact the game offensively from a scoring standpoint. Obviously, he had the crazy and one where he gets bumped and throws up the floater, but I think his first basket of the game was a mid-range pull-up. And we want to try to free Walt up. I need to do a better job of freeing Walt up to be his whole self when he's playing, which is hard to do when the minutes aren't extensive. Tonight he gets, I think, 25, 23. But on nights when he's getting 13, it's a little bit harder, but I need to encourage him and continue to put him in some spots where he can be his whole self and not just be a spacer. Because if you ask anybody in the NBA, any player who is not a trained catch-and-shoot player when they come in, but they can shoot, if your life becomes only about making catch-and-shoot threes, that's a hard way to go. So I felt like Walt got into the flow of the game, got to handle the ball a bunch, played great.
When you look at the Pistons game and tonight's game, where you don't really have a chance to have a really, really bad quarter. You have to really play through all 48 minutes. How do you feel like your team's kind of reached a new level of focus, or how dialed in are they?
Yeah, they're incredibly focused. I think the thing that I've liked the most in the last 2 games is their ability to learn and adjust in the game. The first quarter was not our best quarter defensively. The start of the game against the Pistons, they were getting away from us and getting in the paint too much. And I think as the game goes on, the team is showing the ability to, in a timeout or in between the first and second quarter, make an adjustment on the fly. And that's a sign of growth. The best teams in the league can make adjustments really fast. Usually, we've had situations in the past where we've needed to kind of regroup in between games because it's harder to see it in the game and make the adjustment. But I think the team has shown the last 2 nights that they are growing in that area. To win the second, third, and fourth quarters in this game tonight, I think it's a great sign.
When you look at tonight's game and given the context too off a back-to-back and the tough teams, how do you view this win versus maybe the other wins you guys have had on your schedule?
Yeah, I think this is one that they should be very proud of. There's a couple of wins this year that stand out in your mind in terms of how they felt. Obviously there's a bunch of people that'll say, oh, they all count the same, but to be in that environment against that team, the second night of a back-to-back on the road, it's something that I want the team to take pride in. It's also something that is important for us going forward because we've shown ourselves that we can do it. We know what that feels like because there's going to be plenty of opportunities in the future this season and beyond where we're going to be on the second night of a back-to-back, and it's going to be a road game, and it's going to be hard, and everybody's going to be tired, and our bodies aren't going to feel great. But they've shown that they can do it.
That's Jazz head coach Will Hardy. Let's move on to the players and hear from Bryce Sensabaugh.
Some really good fight in us. I feel like in the past there's been times where, we get down or we get, we lose the lead by, 5 or 6 points and we kind of just crumble. But I feel like, this year we've shown some really big fight in those moments where we get down. And we've been leaning on each other a lot. And I think our toughness and our attention to detail this year has been really good. So.
Yeah, when it comes to the fight and also the focus, what has kind of switched maybe over the last week to kind of be as honed in as you guys are?
Man, the coaches keep us very locked in, and also it's just about us, our our collectiveness, like, during the dead balls, like we huddle sometimes, and just staying on point and staying focused has been really key for us because, like I said, like it's hard to, fight back in these NBA games. So, I think, and even more than that, like when we get up, when we get a lead, we did a really good job at like fighting them off and staying up. So this is a really good game for us.
And also defensively, you guys held them to just almost 23% from three. What do you think is standing out on that end of the floor from you guys collectively?
Yeah, I feel like every game is just like personnel, like knowing who we're playing, knowing who we're closing out to, and stuff like that helps us a lot because, once you're in the right spots and you're, doing your work early, like it's just pretty easy from there. You just got to know, who you're closing out to and stuff. So I think we did a great job with that tonight, and, it carried us through the end of the game. Thank you.
That's Bryce Sensabaugh got the start in place of Ace Bailey. 11 points from Bryce on 4 of 6 shooting. Let's now hear from Cody Williams.
As well, what stood out to you in your game?
I think the biggest thing is just the defensive effort and the attention to detail. I feel like not only me, but like the entire team was locked into the scheme. So I feel like I did a good job of kind of executing that and then just playing with pace after that.
Being locked into the scheme seemed to be the theme just on this back-to-back with these two really tough teams. How locked in are you guys, and where does that kind of come from?
Yeah, I think we were super locked in this game, and I think that's the big thing about back-to-backs is not only like mentally tired, you're also physically tired. So, I think we're just able to get energy from each other in the team. I know Will says all the time, especially games like this, you're on the road, back-to-backs, like you get energy from the team. You're not going to get it from the crowd or from anyone else. Social media are going to get it from each other in the locker rooms. I feel like that's kind of where our focus went, and then we were just locked into the details, and I feel like that's why we won.
Not to mention, it seems like the communication's really just taken a leap, maybe these past 2 games, even tonight in the huddles, a lot of communicating. How do you feel like that's helped you guys as a team?
Yeah, I think that just shows kind of how close we are and how much trust we have in each other, where, sometimes you can be, we're over there screaming at each other, in a positive way just because we're passionate about winning, and being able to take that positively and not take it personally and be like, oh, he just wants to win, he's trying to help me. He's telling me to be in low man so that way Wemby doesn't get a lob. So I feel like that's the kind of step we took forward is, just kind of realizing all we're trying to do is win and nothing we say in there is personal. So everyone's just able to listen and kind of say what's on their mind.
And then lastly, when you look at how focused you were on personnel with these 2 games specifically, Wemby or Cade Cunningham yesterday, how do you feel like you guys are going to take that into the rest of the season moving forward on that type of focus on personnel?
I think the biggest thing is we kind of see how good of a team we are, especially when we're locked in, just beat, I think it's the number 1 team in the East, and then just come over here and beat the number 2 team in the West. So I feel like it just shows, and we already knew it, but it also shows we can compete with anyone in the league. I feel like when we're focused and pay attention to detail, we're as good as anyone out there. So just does numbers for our confidence, just kind of shows us the blueprint, kind of shows us, hey, like we do this every night, we're going to be in a great spot. Thank you.
That's Cody Williams, 8 points on 4 of 8 shooting, 6 rebounds in the win. The Jazz beat the Spurs 127-114. Next up, the Jazz take on the Boston Celtics coming up tomorrow night. Tip-off will be at 7. Pregame begins at 6.
All right, there's the best of the postgame show as the Jazz win again. That's two in a row, and they are now 6-6 in their last 12 games. They're clearly getting better. Clearly. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the post-game results from or post-game press conferences as BYU picks up another win number 12 on the season. We'll hear from Kalani, Sitake, and some of the key players in the game. That's next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. BYU gets the win. They beat Georgia Tech. BYU is a 4-point favorite, and they won by 4 points. And way to go, Vegas. LJ Martin didn't play. Obviously, that changed the game. Even so, I thought they'd win by double digits. But you got 2 things. Clearly, you got the fumbled kick that gave Georgia Tech 7 easy points. It looked like the defense had a disaster in the first half with the 21 points. But, you give them the ball inside the 10-yard line. What do you expect? And then the offense with the pick in the end zone. That was a perfectly good drive. Could have ended with certainly with a field goal, maybe with a touchdown. And all of a sudden, and I'm playing, if, but, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But a 4-point win becomes 14 or 17 points, which I got to say is more what I expected. But BYU made the big mistakes and lived to tell about it. They get away with a 25-21 win. Let's get to the post-game comments now. The quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, who threw the ball well in that game. I thought he was pretty efficient there. Head coach Kalani Sitake and also Evan Johnson. Here they are with the media.
Great game, and just really proud of the guys, proud of the leadership on our team, and proud of these two specifically from the plays that they made. But overall, I just felt like got ourselves in a rough spot, unfortunately, but we've been in that position before, and I think the goal is to not be there in 26, so try to find ways to get ahead or maybe play with the same type of urgency from the beginning and carry it on 60 minutes. I think if we can do that, we'll be in a really good spot. But really proud of the guys getting 12-2, proud of all the coaches, staff, support staff, and really proud of the fans that showed up. And so we're really excited. Before we take questions, I just want to just thank Georgia Tech for getting. It required us to play at our best so we can because we knew how difficult they were. The matchup, seeing them on film, a difficult team, and like I said, they were ranked number 7 in the country at one time, and so great team, and fortunately we were able to make the plays and came out with a victory. And then I want to thank FCS and Pop-Tarts Bowl just for the hospitality that they showed us. We had so much fun here. I was worried about the timing, but then I realized we probably should have came maybe half a week earlier. That would have been great. But we had a lot of fun, and were able to connect. And throughout all the festivities, I'm glad that they gave us an opportunity to do some service, and for our guys to do it with Georgia Tech was really awesome, and just shows that bowl games matter. And I'm proud of these guys. I'm proud of the team for what they were able to accomplish in the bowl prep. I felt like we made a step towards becoming a better team, and want to ride that momentum into 2026. But still a lot of work for us to do. But at this time, we should be thankful and celebrate the win. I'm really proud of the way Bear played the entire game. Obviously not at 100%, but he made big time plays, and he's always been consistent and always been poised and under pressure. And that's not anything that I did or the coaches. This is how he came, and we can really do some wonderful things with him going to next year. And then proud of Shmev, and he's been a lockdown corner for us all year. And fourth down play I know was difficult. Credit Georgia Tech, they made the play, but I was just proud about how he reacted. He made the tackle and got us the win, made the play. So really proud of the way these guys carry on, how they play the game, and how they conduct themselves off the field too. So it's an honor for me to be their coach, honor for me to be here. What questions do you have for them, and what questions do you have for me?
Start on the left, third row right jacket, and then we'll move to the front right.
Kalani, Alex Walker with Chem 9 in Orlando. First of all, congrats to you three on the big win. Kalani, a 12th win for this program is something that's only been done, I believe, 5 times, first time in 24 years. What does that say about the gravity of this, just to get to that 12th win as a milestone moment for this team?
Yeah, and I think the fact that we did it with a Big 12 schedule, it says that these guys are great athletes, great players, great talent. But there's a connection that they have, and then the leadership that they've been able to be leaders themselves, but also to connect with the leaders that we have with our upperclassmen. It's been a nice thing for me to see in 10 years of being the head coach, and I'm really excited about year 11 too. So I want to celebrate what we've been able to accomplish. These guys should be really proud, but I think we're just barely starting.
Ron Weaver, ESPN The Fan. The questions for Evan. Walk us through the 4th down and then obviously interception to seal the game.
Just something didn't go right with technique. Got beat. That happens at corner. I was really just thinking about the next play after that. They came to me. Coach Hill gave a great call, and I got my opportunity to go make a play, and had a play like that, Texas Tech, that I didn't go get. So my only thought in my mind in that moment was to go get that ball, and that's what I did.
You mentioned Coach Hill. What adjustments were made at halftime as you guys shut them out?
Really no adjustments were made. It's just we came out with a lot more physicality, a lot more just want, I guess, and then we knew the offense was hot, so getting them the ball was our plan, and made that happen. And Bear made plays and the rest of the offense, and the rest goes from there.
Kalani, when you guys had Georgia Tech facing a 4th and 15 late in the game, Haynes King throws that 66-yard bomb. What's going through your mind at that point when you guys are just trying to wrap up the game?
Well, I mean, obviously we weren't excited about it, but Haynes King's a really good player, and I felt like, okay, tough spot, but Ev made the tackle, and it's hard to run away from this kid. So he made the tackle, and we still had a chance. And I just knew that if this defense can just bow up and find ways, just play fundamentally sound. I mean, we asked them to be more physical, asked them to we said it's going to hurt a little bit, and it's going to require you guys getting to the point of exhaustion. I mean, you guys saw him limping in here, so it wasn't like he was playing 100%, but all it takes is that type of mindset, and I was really proud of the way these guys played and the way that Bear led the offense. It was fun to watch.
Coach, both teams had 2 turnovers and 49 yards lost on penalties each, but only you guys were able to capitalize on those turnovers and penalties. So what's the mindset you instill in these guys to make sure that they go get those opportunities when they're given to them due to penalties and turnovers?
Well, I mean, the coach in me is frustrated about the turnovers because, I mean, we gave them the ball on the 5-yard line off of the kickoff, and then and then we walked away with no points on the interception, But we're still learning, and we're still getting better. But that's the game. Football, it happens. I don't think what I do like is how they responded. I mean, it's not like we're not going to throw the ball anymore because Bear threw a pick. You just got to keep doing it. It's not like we're going to not put Evan in man-to-man coverage. That's what we have to do. So it's a next play mentality, and got to trust that these guys are going to make plays. I don't see these guys making back-to-back negative plays, and so I'm really excited when we weren't playing that great. I felt like the offense was moving the ball. We just got to capitalize and put it in the end zone. The first drive was stuffed at the 1 yard. They made a great play. It happens sometimes, but we want to be aggressive and we want to make plays. And they were aggressive. They did that fake field goal, swinging gate type of run, and they made some plays. It was time for us to be bold and try to find ways to make plays and be aggressive too. And part of being aggressive on the defensive side is just guys got to make tackles when it comes their way. And I think Georgia Tech was trying to challenge our DBs to make tackles, and we just asked them to it might hurt a little bit, but you're going to have to make some stops, and it's okay. And that's the game. I felt like it was such a back and forth, but if we can just minimize the mistakes, but the mistakes are part of the game. I just like the reaction that we have to the game overall. We weren't hanging our heads when we went down 2 scores. We were excited to play. There's still plenty of time on the clock, and when you give these guys that much time, we're never out of it.
Bear, what % were you coming into the game, and then did you re-aggravate the injury? Like, I think it was even on the first drive. Or just take us through your injury status, as it were.
Yeah, kind of was banged up, but and then hurt it a little more on the first drive, but I ended up battling it out, and it was a good win.
Bear, you haven't wanted to reveal much about your injury situation necessarily, but how tough has that been to overcome, and how have you changed as a quarterback? You not a lot of run attempts today. How has that progression been?
Yeah, well, it's a testament to Coach A-Rod and the guys around me, and them making plays and them doing their job, and all I have to do is do my 111th, and so it worked out.
Halftime stats, yeah.
Aaron McMahon with the Ann Arbor News. Kalani, I was hoping to get your thoughts on Kyle Whittingham taking the Michigan job and then the potential of him looking at Jay as his defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, I think I made the statement that it's hard to see Kyle not doing something with football, and there's the something. So that's and what that happened. He has a network that he goes to for putting together staff, and that's how football works. I feel really good about what we have going here, and we'll with the players and the coaches, we'll go with what we got. And I feel good about how we established the foundation. Jay's a big part of what we were able to do defensively for the last 3 years, and A-Rod's been doing that for a number of years too. So we feel really good about where we're at overall as a team, and it's those guys that made it happen for us.
I have two quick questions, or a first quick question. What are your thoughts on the jailbreak by pumping protein strawberry? And then second, and more importantly, this has been a bit of an odd pre-bowl period. How have you guys kind of navigated that and kind of cleared your head and got into the mindset for today's game?
In terms of the Pop-Tart stuff, it doesn't matter what you do with Pop-Tarts, I'm going to eat it. And I think a lot of us, I probably had too many, but I can still eat some more. So, but in terms of the playoff committee and all that stuff, listen, they made the decision, we're fine. We got to move on and just keep playing football. I think what the committee did is it's a hard decision for them to go and put that together. But we love football. We're going to watch the playoffs. We're going to watch all the bowl games. I love that these guys want to play the game, and we had every play. The only ones that didn't play are the ones that were injured, and we held out. I mean, Jack Kelly wanted to play, and we held him out, and LJ wanted to play, but he had that surgery. So these guys love football. We love football. It just so happened that we were outside of it, and that's okay. I love the maturity from our players that we earned another chance to play a game, and these guys came here with a great attitude. To be in here and had so much appreciation and gratitude for being invited to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and then their interaction with Georgia Tech and all the festivities. I was really proud of these guys, and that's how you do things in life. If it's not the way you wanted it to go, that's okay. Your reaction is going to be what everybody's going to define you with.
Bear, we've talked a little bit about what you've had to battle through in this game. How important, and Coach, feel free to chime in where you'd like to as well, how important was Carson Ryan to help you get back and find a rhythm out there on the field?
Yeah, he's an integral part of our offense, and he's a quote-unquote safety blanket when you need him. And, he balled out, and he's a dog.
His yak yards are good. I mean, Carson broke tackles and got some tough yards for us and helped us get the ball down the field. And so, it's been awesome seeing him doing that all year long. And Bear was great decision making. I mean, he didn't run as much as we've seen in the past, but Bear's proven that he can throw the ball. Threw for 325 yards, and he's, like I said before, still pup. He's still young. Still a lot of, look at that baby face, So he's got a lot of growth to do, and I just know his effort and his approach to the game. He's got great intelligence in the game of football, and he's always willing to learn. And when you have a guy that's willing to do that, it's going to be really fun for us. And then on the other side, Evan's done a great job at preparing himself. I mean, look at the development that we've had with him, and he wants to remind everybody that he was a receiver in high school. That's what we recruited him to do, and so he's got the speed, but he's done an amazing job, and was able to get the play. So all these guys this has been a work in progress, and I'm glad that their coaches put him in a position to make plays for us.
This is for Evan and Bear, and Kalani, feel free to chime in if you'd like. Just what was that whole experience like, winning the game and then watching the Sprinkles team win, sacrificing Pop-Tarts down a toaster and getting to eat some of it? I saw, Bear, that you were going after the strawberry pretty good. What was that whole thing like? It was just kind of a fun ending.
I mean, it's unreal, just getting the opportunity to come down here, play in the game. It's just one of a kind, getting to eat those Pop-Tarts and hold up the Let's Eat sign. All that. It's all fun, and we're super grateful to the Pop-Tarts Bowl for hosting us out there. They've been great to us, and Orlando's been a ball.
Pop-Tarts were good, so yeah, it was that makes it all better.
I love Pop-Tarts. Strawberry.
Cinnamon.
I like them all. So yeah, we listen. The bowl game was different than what we've ever known, and I like it a lot. And these guys did too. And so I don't think they should change anything. I mean, it was really cool. They get the energy from Georgia Tech fans and from BYU fans was amazing today. And man, I'm just really proud that we got to be part of that.
Kalani, can you confirm then that it's Jay Hill going to Michigan to join Kyle's staff?
No, I think Jay's going to make his own statements on what he's going to do. I'm just saying that, acknowledging that Kyle's at Michigan, and we've got people have some decisions to make. Guys have decisions to make whether they're going to go to the NFL or come back, and I'm not here to. It's not me, so I'm here to stay, and but everyone else can speak for themselves, and the program's in a really good spot, and because of a lot of people, players, coaches, and the people that have gotten to where we're at right now, and it would be awesome for me as a head coach and an honor for me to continue this thing going.
Evan, they played turbulence between the third and fourth quarters, something you guys are very used to. How did that maybe help you guys going into that fourth quarter? What led to that fourth quarter resurgence for you guys?
I think it's just our trust in our preparation. Coach Hill continues to prepare us throughout the week, and when you trust in him and you have someone making those calls for you, it makes it easy to go out there and make plays. Also, I feel like the whole off season, just our team has really bought into the culture, into the program, and all the little things. So just executing those at a high level has helped us be successful. And then, the turbulence, it just made us feel at home. So we're ready to go. We don't lose at home.
Coach, what did you make of Gilvessa tonight? He seemed like he stepped up in a really big spot. It's been kind of struggled maybe a little bit in the first half, but got going in the second, and obviously the game-winning touchdown for you guys.
Really proud of Gilvessa. I think A-Rod mentioned it before. He said we're going to give him a chance, and then I was just showing Bear his 7 runs for 48 yards and 19 was long. I mean, he did some really good things, and I think Bear put him in a really good spot. I mean, we talked about our depth at all the different positions that we have, and we were able to show it off a little bit. I mean, we didn't have LJ and Sione playing today, so it was good to see Gilvessa and Enoch, represent, and they did a really good job. I mean, we opened up, the playbook was still open. We were able to do everything right there that we practiced that we would have done with LJ and with Sione, and this is so I said the future looks bright for us.
Kalani, 12-1 for this program, first time since 2001. What does it mean to do it, though, with this group, Coach Roderick, Coach Hill, Bear, Evan? What does it mean for this group in particular?
Well, I honestly, I'm just really proud of everybody. It's not easy to do, and to do it in the Big 12 and to do it playing a great team like Georgia Tech in the bowl game, and so we should be really proud. But we're still got work to do. So right now we're going to celebrate and have fun, get some time off, and let the guys, let their toe and their bruises heal up and stuff like that, and then get back to work. Though these guys only know one way, and that's to go to work. And I've never had to sit there and remind them to go to work. They've always been doing it. In fact, it's been nice as a head coach to have to tell guys to slow down a little bit when they're all in and ready to go. And so they're great sons, they're great brothers, and I get to coach that. And so. But with that, I want to do things within reason and know that this is a long process. We still have from here till August to get where we want to be as a team, and we're going to use all the time, and it's going to require us to really work.
All right, there's Kalani Sitake, Bear Bachmeier, and Evan Johnson after BYU gets the win in their bowl game in Florida and they beat Georgia Tech. When we come back, what is trending? All of the headlines, interesting stuff going on in the NFL and NBA. More on the coaching changes. Well, certainly at Utah, but beyond that, as Kyle looks for coordinators. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
Allen puts a man in motion. Allen looks. He's back. He's firing. And it is incomplete. The Eagles win. The Eagles win. Now there's 5 seconds on the clock, but the Eagles are going to win.
Purdy's in the shotgun with Robinson beside him.
They're at the Bears' 38-yard line, second down. Purdy drops back. Purdy steps up. Purdy throws middle. There's Jennings. He's got it. Inside the 20, the 10. He's gone. Touchdown. 49ers back in front. No timeouts left. Here's the snap. Williams looking left. Williams looking right. Williams U-turns. Gets away from Huff. Still looking. Backpedaling. Throws. And it is incomplete. The ball game is over. And the 49ers have won it.
Highlights around the NFL. A thriller as the Niners beat the Bears 42-38. And the 49ers set up a showdown with Seattle. Saturday, winner will be the NFC West champ, the 1 seed. They'll get a first-round playoff bye and be home as long as they are alive in the NFC playoffs. PK, you're not here for those Kyle Whittingham defensive showdowns. You're here for the high-scoring games. You got what you wanted.
Sunday night was a beautiful game. Absolutely loved it. Loved it seeing going back and forth, all that offense. It was the antithesis of the Bills and Eagles.
It was the antithesis of the Bills and Eagles, which was a snooze fest in the freezing rain. But over here, where the players could feel their fingertips, they were making catches. The Niners now, they went into a bye week. They had a late bye. They played 3 games since the bye. 37 points, 48 points, 42 points. They've come out of it unstoppable. We got one more week of regular season, some seeding to be decided. The playoffs are largely set. If they had their guys, they'd clearly be the Super Bowl pick, but they don't have Bosa. They don't have Fred Warner. They showed him Fred Warner during the game, and the update is, maybe the NFC title game, he could be back. If they had their guys, I think they'd be the pick, but now it looks incredibly wide open. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily go if they have 2 other guys there. I mean, because you're assuming every other team is 100% healthy.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone else has to have injuries. And this one team gets to be 100%.
Yeah, you got a future Jazz broadcasting if you want to go with that line. So, I mean, you play who you play, and away you go.
Little things matter in football, and the freezing rain kick an extra point already. But the Bills had the first one blocked, decided to go for 2. Bold call. But, man, they ran a good play. They had a guy wide open, and then the throw just wasn't close. I don't know how to explain it other than the throw was not even close.
Yeah, I think on 2-point conversions, you have got to run some form of a trick play. I don't think you can just drop back in a traditional pocket situation. It just doesn't seem to work. And if it does, it has to be within the first 2-3 seconds max. At that point, it seems like it's all sorts of issues.
We've been talking about NBA tanking this year, and we will get to that coming up. But the Giants beating the Raiders for the 3rd win and going for it, that's a front office thing. The players, hey, let's bring in some good players to take my job away. Yeah, there's just no incentive. And the Giants thrash the Raiders 34-10. They pick up win number 3. No tanking for New York or Jersey.
I don't think that it really matters in the NFL. I mean, the NFL is about 53 players. It's not about one singular player. And there's no quarterback in this draft who's an absolute can't-miss prospect unless I'm missing somebody off the top of my head. I don't think Mendoza is that. At no point has he ever been that. And so you play to win the game, as the guy I hate once said. And what you do with the opportunity to acquire talent in the offseason, drafting is a critical component of it, but you have free agency. You have free agency with undrafted players who can come in. There's too many components. It's not even close to the NBA.
Dumping on the Bills and the Eagles for not scoring points, justifiably. But how about the Steelers and Browns? Pittsburgh clinches the division with a win. They lose 13-6, and they lose in Cleveland for the 4th straight year. Doesn't make any sense with the Browns being this bad, but it keeps happening. There aren't that many true rivalries in the NFL. They tend to follow, key players or maybe key coaches. But the Steelers and Browns, because they're 90 minutes apart, that seems to be one legit rivalry, and the Browns win at home again.
Well, I can't explain what happened 2 or 3 years ago because I wouldn't have known. I'm not into how many games you lost here or there. That doesn't make any sense to me. Who cares what happened 4 years ago? I think it's just proves that DK Metcalf has done a stupid thing.
Yep.
And he should have let it go. Now, the fan, you need to stop yelling at the players. So he needs to bear some responsibility. They need to stop doing that. This is entertainment. You don't go to a movie and sit there and scream at the actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I view sports. It's entertainment. So just stay in the stands. If you want to boo, but don't yell at them anything personally. And Metcalf didn't need to go over there.
Nope.
They don't have a receiver anything close to him. And that's not me speaking exclusively. I'm listening to what all the commentators are saying yesterday to get some insight as to why that happened. And then I think that they were all pointing to that. You just can't do that type of stuff. You literally cost your team potentially a game, and obviously you cost yourself some money.
44-year-old Phillip Rivers, a San Diego Charger, PK. There he is, number 17. Got him going today. He's played well, but he can't win. Jacksonville wins. The Colts have lost 3 in a row with Phillip there, and of course the losing streak's longer than that. It looks like they're going to lose out to finish the year. Jacksonville at 12-4. You view them as a real Super Bowl contender, along with the Patriots, the Broncos, and whoever else in the AFC?
Yeah, probably. Why not?
Yeah, right?
There isn't. The Chiefs aren't there this year. They don't have the track record. The Bills, they've got a track record of being good but losing in the playoffs. What does that mean? Now, you can argue for Buffalo's perspective that it actually ramps up the pressure. It doesn't decrease the pressure with the Chiefs not being there because obviously they've been the roadblock.
Yes. And obviously the Bills have looked vulnerable here. They've lost 5 times. It's not like they're an unbeatable machine.
Right.
I mean, they make mistakes offensively, defensively. It seems like it's always something. All right, NFL football tonight. You got a Monday night game with the Rams and the Falcons. The Rams just playing for playoff positioning at this point. DJ and PK.
#BYU.
Cougars win. It wasn't always pretty, PK. They dug a hole, but they came back again. They've done it before. They did it again. Maybe reminiscent of Colorado. Maybe got another game it reminds you of. They got in a hole. The turnovers, they got in their own way on offense and on special teams, but they still rally and win the game. So 12-2 for the first time in more than 20 years. They win 12 games. Big year for them.
Well, they had to send Jay Hill out the right way, and they had to send the seniors out the right way.
Yep. There it is. And they did with the shutout in the second half, and they get the win. Bear Bachmeier doesn't disclose everything about the injury, but he ran a lot less, but he threw for 325 yards in the game. Wants the pick back, I suppose, but a pretty strong performance from him.
Yeah, obviously the game plan was to throw. It was to throw early and throw often throughout the entire game. A-Rod set up a good play. Maybe it's a going away present for Aaron Roderick, because I think there's a connection there with Morgan Scalley and all that stuff. We'll see in the coming days. I know there's been conversations and whatnot. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, set it up for them. And they had the bulk of the receivers, right? Carson Ryan had some big catches, some tough yards. And so they did what they needed to do. Evan Johnson gets burned at the end. I thought, is that BYU's 4th and 17? Was it with Max Hall to Austin Collie? Is he going to come back to haunt him? Because it seemed like that was improbable. Then obviously Evan Johnson gets the interception there. And from that point on, after they completed that pass, I think Georgia Tech offense went 0-for-4. Yep. And it was a real thrilling game, And it's a plea for keep the Bulls around for at least a little bit longer. There are some values in having these games. I mean, attendance didn't look all that good and all, but for us watching the game, it was fun, and the players seemed to have fun.
ESPN takes a lot of heat, and ESPN's probably earned a lot of heat, but I think they're the ones who are going to keep the Bulls around. They want the programming, and they own some of the games. So I find it hard to believe the colleges are going to pass some rule and ban them. So what do you think about Demooney at running back? 7 carries, 48 yards. Who's going to be RB1? And we got a transfer portal, so you never know. But how impressed were you with the way he ran the ball?
The second half, he looked good. And Aaron Roderick said leading up to it, it's his opportunity to see what he has. And once he sort of got his feet under him, obviously he looked good. He's not the biggest dude, but he ran tough. He looked like he has some agility, some lively legs, because obviously he hadn't been used that much of it all during the season. And so, I think he was impressive under the circumstances for sure.
DJ and PK.
#college football.
Michigan formally introduced Kyle Whittingham as the Wolverines' new head coach. There he was in blue. How disoriented were you, PK? It was a wild weekend. You knew the press conference was coming, but it looked weird nonetheless.
It didn't look weird at all to me because I'm not a Utah fan. I'm a Kyle Whittingham fan, and I've been this way for years. I root for individuals, right? I'm going to be rooting for Weber State next season. Now I got to root for Michigan. And so for me, when you've been in this business this long, I'm not attached to – I'm a Morgan Scalley fan. I'll say that going forward. There's no question about that. Had some communication with him over the weekend, and I want to see him do well. But I'm fans of people, not teams. So to me, Kyle Whittingham, the fan I am of him and the relationship I have with him, that hasn't changed. In fact, we were setting up to an intermediary of Barton Hills Country Club, which is just right out of Ann Arbor. I've got to find my way there to be able to play on that course. It's since 1919 is when it opened. So I'm looking forward to getting to Barton Hills Country Club here soon. And I've got some family there that I could sponge off of, my wife's family. So I hope to be back there.
You're setting up free lodging and free golf. Now, the only question is, what about airfare, PK? What can you swing there?
Well, I want to talk to some of our management and see if I can get back there. I think their first game is against Western Michigan, but the second game is against Oklahoma. Yeah, and I think it would be cool to go back there and spend a few days, get an inside look. So we'll see what happens there in the coming weeks. If the company's interested in that, I can do that. Otherwise, I may hit you up for a loan. I mean, I had to do a hit from just, a basic room on Saturday. or Friday. You just has no idea of your affluence. You're telling us overlooking the Chesapeake. You don't understand how that makes the rest of us feel so small and so marginal when you do. I read that to my wife, and she said, "Is he kidding?" I said, "No. He's so unaware of his affluence. He's telling us about the size of his television. He does hits overlooking the Chesapeake." Yeah, I mean, come on.
Good news for those of you who have family that come visit and you get everybody home for the holidays. Some of us have to go running around to find him. So there you go. That's what drove that.
But you could have just. I'm sitting in a car. I did a hit. Scotty was in a car.
They were sitting in the car. They were sitting in the car because it was warmer. It was so freaking cold. I thought I was going to drop the phone.
Then why didn't you sit in the car with them?
Oh, they didn't want to listen. They didn't want to listen to that.
Do whatever you want. Do it with somebody dipping grapes in your mouth. But don't tell us about it.
Grapes in my mouth.
Yeah.
DJ and PK.
#Utah Jazz.
It's not easy to do that, especially on the road, but we've seen this a bunch of times this year where in close games our team is not afraid. They don't look scattered. They're very connected, and they're stepping up and making a lot of big plays. So I'm so proud of our group.
Utah Jazz back-to-back wins. They beat the Detroit Pistons, first place in the East. They beat the Spurs, who'd won 8 out of 9 and had back-to-back wins over Oklahoma City. And the Jazz, it wasn't just a good weekend. They 6-6 now in their last 12 games, PK. They are picking up speed.
Okay, here's to number 10. Get the 10th place, I guess, if that matters to you. But, I mean, they make shots. I know you're making more.
They did make shots.
In San Antonio, they shot 54% from the floor and 45+ from the three. If you're going to do that, you're going to win games.
Do they have guys who can routinely make shots? How routinely can they make shots?
I mean, I don't think Walter Clayton Jr. is that type of player.
No, they ham and egg it.
Player in any given game.
They ham and egg it around Markkanen and around Keontae George, who are getting there 29, 30, 31 points. And then one night, Clayton's goes off. Another night, Sensabaugh had a 20-point game. So ham and egg it with somebody else around those two.
The coolest thing for me that happened in both of those games was when Detroit tied the game, and then they're in the final seconds. I forget how many, but it was obviously right down to the end. When the Jazz took the ball out of the backcourt, and at that point, I just naturally went to, oh, this is George's moment. And like it was a natural reflex Pavlov dog's reaction, and then he makes the shot. And so I thought about it afterward. I immediately went to this is his opportunity. He's going to have the ball. He's going to take the shot. And I felt a fair amount of confidence that he's going to make the shot. And the point I'm making is the stature of that young man, that's the story of the season to date. His just ascension up the totem pole on this team and maybe in the league, we'll see how it continues to play out. That's the number one overriding story. There's nothing else that I can say competes with this regarding the Jazz. And to me, just to naturally assume it's going to be George, that's how far he's come basically in 2 months.
I think the assumption there, if you knew it, then don't the Pistons know it? And the Pistons can't do anything about it. That's got to be the exciting thing for Jazz fans going forward.
Yeah, no question.
Tomorrow night, Jazz host the Celtics at the Dell Center, tip-off at 7 o'clock. DJ and PK.
#NBA.
Kawhi Leonard, the double nickel, a career-high 55 points. The Clippers beat the Pistons 112-99. Clippers have won 4 in a row. They've got 10 wins on the season now, and they are one of several teams at the bottom of the league that is suddenly winning, PK, from 7-3 in the last 10 to 2-2 in the last 4. There's all kinds of streaks here. Even the Nets have been winning games. What is going on?
I don't know. I'm not really paying attention to that. I mean, who cares what the Nets do? I look at Yegor and see what he does.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of the story there. But the Nets have won 3 in a row now and 4 out of 5. So as much as the Jazz are winning, they still haven't pulled away from the bottom of the league as far as losing that draft pick.
Yeah, but if they go the way they are,
they're going to. Yeah.
And I don't care what the Clippers aren't a threat to do anything, and the Nets. I have no idea who they even played and beat.
Wolves, Sixers, and Raptors. Decent teams. Go figure. Lakers righted their ship. J.J. Redick's been upset with the team, calling them out for the lack of effort. They beat the lowly Kings 125-101. DJ and PK.
#college basketball.
Ready for conference games already, PK? Had enough of the warm-up stuff? We're almost there. Depending on the league, we are there. The WAC begins conference play. UVU's playing Cal Baptist tonight, and Southern Utah's playing Utah Tech.
Way to go for those guys. Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to Big 12 play.
Utah's playing their last non-conference game. They're at Washington, 9 o'clock on FS1 tonight.
Although I will say some of the things that transpired here in college basketball, I'm out. I don't care who wins anymore. I'll follow BYU, Utah State because it's the job. But if you're signing guys who are NBA draft picks,
yep, there are no rules.
You've lost me.
Yeah.
And now there's a possibility of a guy who actually played in an NBA game. And I'm not a huge college basketball guy anyway.
But now it's not college basketball. If you're getting G League guys and NBA draft picks, and Tom Izzo went off on this and said, look at all these big-time coaches, and especially underlined Jay Wright walking away. I mean, Krzyzewski was at a point where his career was going to end sooner or later anyway. But Jay Wright definitely walked away prematurely. But it's not that I don't think most people think Izzo's wrong. I just think he's screaming into the wind and nobody can hear him. It's not going to change anything. I think this is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, though.
Really? You think it'll change?
Mark. Yeah, but I think the fans will say,
never mind.
We're not really into this here. You're picking up guys, teams routinely picking up guys off the waiver wire.
That used to be the joke. You can't do that. Now they can, mid-season.
Utah gets a player from a Spanish player, and we'll see what he can do. As they basically what they're doing is they're watering down the non-conference season even more, and they're going to expand the tournament, which is just going to dilute the regular season beyond pollution. But see me in March. I'll be interested in March.
DJ and PK.
#golf.
The golf league is back. Indoors. Got the big screen. Got the putting green, and the Atlanta Drive beat New York. Chance to watch the guys in the offseason. Drive over from their home, have a few laughs, make a few putts, Hit onto a few ridiculous TV screens? I guess it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, not yet. I think for me, I would go in more into January. Right now, there's a ton of stuff going on. I think the biggest news in golf was Brooks Koepka saying he's dropping out of the LIV. What does that mean? What does that mean for the PGA Tour? What does that mean for this LIV thing that really, in my mind, hasn't taken off? I think that's the number one story in golf right now.
Right now, it sounds like Koepka is going to take some time off. I think he should be back on the PGA Tour, and the talk of punishment, I get it because it was a commercial threat to everybody's wallet, and some people are going to want their pound of flesh. But, they've always said on the PGA Tour that these guys are independent contractors and they can do whatever. Well, if they're independent contractors, then he did whatever he want. Seems to me if he can qualify, and maybe they want to make him go through Q school. Although I'm pretty sure he'd get sponsor exemptions on a regular basis. I don't see why he shouldn't be back. I mean, after all, they're independent contractors. I've heard that a million times.
Well, he'll play in the majors if he's healthy, obviously,
because
they've already been doing that. And the PGA has the rule you have to wait a year since your last LIV appearance, which was in August. So basically, he has to redshirt. The college guys can transfer willy-nilly at all times, anytime, and they're immediately eligible. But now Brooks Koepka has to sit out as a redshirt because if he wants to go to one tour to the other. So I don't think in terms of consistently seeing him on the PGA Tour, it's going to be in 2026, but it's going to be in 2027 if he wants to.
DJ and PK.
#NHL.
Utah Mammoth have been off since the 23rd. They are back at it tonight, hosting the Nashville Predators at the Delta Center. Puck drops at 7. Pre-game show at 6. An interesting game in the Central Division. The Predators chasing one of those last couple of wild card berths in the West. They're sitting on 36 points. The Mammoth on 39. So we're almost halfway through the season. Interesting game tonight, and you can hear it right here on The Zone.
Well, I think we're still waiting for them to go on a streak. I mean, they had the streak early, but then that's been washed away. Can they do it again? And now's the time to do it, right? As we're approaching into January, get yourself set up. I continue to say it. I want to see them, when we get into early March, be in the playoff, just a matter of where they fall in the standings, not are they fighting to get in. But right now, if I had to guess, I would think that they would be fighting to get in.
Sitting on 39 points, tied for the last spot in the West. I think you're spot on there. And January is really interesting because there really isn't a February. I mean, they play one game early in February and one game late, but they're off for most of February because of the Olympics. So January is huge. The games will keep coming fast and furious.
Yeah, that's why I said get to March and see where they're at.
What's Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Steve Cleveland coming up at 8 o'clock. Shayan Jayaraja coming up at 9 o'clock.
That'd be Yogi Roth at 9 o'clock.
Coming up next, stay with us. The question of the day. I think you know the topic. That's next. Stay with us.
This is JJ and Alex. I got this.
Joining us on the program right now, Andy Phillips, former kicker for the University of Utah.
Coach Scally wears a little bit more emotion on his sleeve and is not afraid to joke around with you. And I go to our blackout game, and there he is in a white shirt, and I can give him a bunch of crap for being in a white shirt at a blackout game, and he can turn around and give me all kinds of crap as well. And he brings totally different perspective than Coach Whitt, and so a lot of people are like, you're going to get a lot of the same with Scally, and I don't necessarily think that's true. And I think it's going to be just a great change at Utah in leadership, in the sense that there's new blood and new energy. And I know that Coach Scally's been preparing for this for decades, and we'll take all of the good that he's learned from Coach Whitt and the coaches that he's worked with, and then we'll put his own flavor on the program. And so I'm really excited to see what that's going to turn into.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it is time for Hot Takes or Toast. The Kyle Whittingham to Michigan story is the story of the weekend, PK. And then the cumulative effect of who does Kyle take with him and then who replaces those people. Feels like somebody just put all the pieces in the puzzle box and just gave him a good shake for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I actually think the Kyle Whittingham story is the biggest sports story of the entire 2025 calendar year. There is nothing that is anything bigger than this. And it comes right at the end, obviously. But here we are. It's a situation that played out somewhat expectedly on the first portion of it, meaning that he stepped down, right? But once we all got word that he wasn't going to officially retire, doing my research, thinking, okay, if Dillingham is sort of like the last guy that is an up-and-comer that has some form of credibility, if he decides to stay in Tempe because of the pull of his family, his sister literally lives next door to him. He posted a picture of handing over Christmas dinner to his sister over the fence, kind of joking. See, I told you this is the way I stayed. And it's political, telling recruits, hey, I'm not going anywhere. This is one of the reasons why. But once that happened, it's like, okay, Michigan is going to show some serious interest in Kyle because they are a program that needs to win at the highest level in order to be successful. And that includes hiring a brand name coach. Kyle's a Hall of Fame coach, right? I think we'd all agree with that. His credentials are such, being what they are, and the universal respect. It's like I've been saying for years, because he treated the media so well. If you had any connection with him, you couldn't wait to go to Twitter, the John Canzanos of the world, telling you, I know him, he's my guy, and I love him, right? So it was universally praised, and just a matter of, did he want in? And clearly he does, and here we are. Now there's going to be fallouts. The story, as you say, DJ, has about 15 different layers, and I think there's going to be fallouts as far as both BYU and Utah in terms of coaches leaving, and then Scally and Kalani are going to have to pick up the pieces. And another layer, as I ramble on here, is that, man, we thought 3 weeks ago, okay, BYU set. Well, you're never set in college sports.
Boom, there it is.
Some time,
yep.
And it just changes dramatically, literally from week to week sometimes.
And I know then the fallout can go to players, and everybody's intrigued by the transfer portal and who's going where. And coaches will get blamed / credited depending on fans' allegiance. But it's what you just said. This happened all the time. Last year, BYU got a run stuff and defensive tackle from Utah, and Utah got an outstanding pass rusher from BYU. So this stuff has already been going on. It's the new world order. At least in college football, they're not getting guys out of the NFL and the CFL right now. So we got that. I mean, we got that level of stability. But other than that, it's game on.
Yeah, if there's some form of G League or two-way contract or European League in which those guys over there, whoever, European football players don't really exist to the level of basketball. Obviously, you look at some of the European players are no longer an oddity in the NBA. They're phenomenal players, and they're going to continue to come over in waves as their ability allows them to. So you got that issue over there in football, right? And I do think some guys are going to go. I mean, I really don't understand how Jay Hill would not go. There's no future for him to be a head coach at BYU. He's literally the same age. He and Kalani were born in the same year, 50 years ago. Kalani is about 7 months younger than Jay. But the opportunity to go to Michigan and get Michigan on your resume, wow, that opens up not just maybe Mountain West level jobs, but that would open up untold opportunities. So if he wants to go, and he's got family here too, obviously with his parents and whatnot and his kids, but if he decides to go, away you go. And the thing that I like, it is so special. Kyle's grandsons now are diehard Michigan fans. That's just beautiful. His kids are too old to paint their face the maize and blue, so now go to the grandkids.
Well, he said he dropped the line about they've already changed the plays they play in their computer games. They're all
right. So they've been hardcore Michigan fans for a good 3 days now.
He had a good line about that when he's asked if he hated Ohio State. I guess I do now. I actually read some of the comments under that, and there were Michigan fans upset. He's not from here. He doesn't get it. And there was one fan who's like, we know he's not from here. Give him time. He'll hate them. Don't force it on him. Let it come naturally. It was pretty funny, actually.
Well, it's not about hating them. It's about beating them.
It really is.
I mean, that's really all that matters. And so every team that's in front of him, he's going to hate in that particular week. So I'm not really concerned about that. It is different. He's not a Michigan guy. Rich Rod was not a Michigan guy, and it didn't work. So what's it going to be? I don't think it's a slam dunk that it's going to work at there. I mean, they could lose Bryce Underwood. I know that he had a 45-minute meeting with Bryce Underwood, but Bryce Underwood, who's a star quarterback, may be thinking, well, let's take a look and see all the quarterbacks that were drafted under Kyle Whittingham at Utah. That would be nobody.
Right.
I mean, obviously Tyler Huntley has made the NFL, so we'll see about that and what Underwood wants to do. And, Kyle's not going to change his philosophy. They're going to hand off, and they're going to play stout defense, and they're going to have a good offensive line, and they're going to have good running backs. I mean, at 66 years old, obviously he's not going to change. And some people are worried about 66 years old. Well, Urban Meyer was much younger, and he still only gave you 2 years. What's the difference? The age. How long can you give me in terms of how good you can be? That's what matters. And so from that perspective here, can he give them good 3, 4, 5 years? It could play out a little bit down the line in recruiting, because if you're not going to be here, but nobody is guaranteed to be anywhere come every single January. I mean, this is the situation throughout the sport. So that even doesn't matter as much as it did. And away we go. And, if you're a Ute fan, you have I'm talking to some Ute fans and some people that aren't just casual Ute fans, but some people who have leadership positions, exchanging texts and whatnot, and they're upset. They think that Utah bungled this. I'm not so sure. I'm not going to come on here and just crack on Mark Harlan and say this is failed leadership, because I don't believe it entirely is. And Kyle took some ownership on this by saying, I was the one who talked about retirement. I answered the questions. Mm-hmm. So if you're Mark Harlan and your leader of your football program is talking about retirement, you create a plan, and then things change. Mark Harlan's plans and ideas and all didn't change. It was Kyle's who's changed. So before we just dump on Mark, I'm not sure that's entirely fair.
So from both perspectives, first from Kyle's perspective, I thought that was really interesting that he said that was my mistake talking about retirement, because a lot of what he said, you knew he was going to say it before he said it. He said things you have to say at press conferences, and he got questions just you get at press conferences, and he gave the answers you gave. A lot of it was pro forma. I thought that was really interesting because he didn't have to say that. So there's that. Yeah. And then for Mark, I get the optics, the optics of if Morgan struggles and Kyle wins, then they blew it. But I just don't think it's that much about whatever Michigan does. There are challenges at Michigan unique to Michigan. Hey, you got to beat Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, and a non-conference game with Oklahoma, right? There are also positives at Michigan. I mean, their history, their money, my gosh. I mean, he was already calling for Tom Brady. I haven't heard from Tom Brady. I guess he's busy. Yeah, he wants Tom Brady to help him recruit. What Michigan coach wouldn't?
Yeah.
So I'd set the Michigan stuff aside. Whether the AD and the president got it right or got it wrong, tell me if Morgan wins. Because if he wins, they could have kept Kyle and he could have won. But if he wins, they're winning with a younger guy. They can do it for longer. If he wins, it's great. Now, you do also have, hey, all the rules are changing. The money's changing. Can they keep up? So maybe it'll be an apples and oranges comparison, but I think this is much more about what level of success does Utah have going forward as opposed to what level of success Michigan does. Although I know they are inevitably going to get linked, I just think does Utah win?
Well, the pressure is ramped up on Morgan Scalley. He is stepping into an inferno, not just a mild fire, but a raging wildfire now. And in a sense, I feel bad for him. I talked to him a little bit. I said, hey, dude, I got full confidence in you. But he is going to be a rookie head coach. Yeah. And I think of one of the things that Majerus used to say, and I know it's old time now, but he was a big influence on me. And he said the biggest leap, and this is college basketball, obviously, when you see the reference that I make, the biggest leap any coach will make is taking that 1 foot to his left. And what he was talking about is sitting on the bench as an assistant and then standing up to your left while the game's going on. And it's about 1 foot away, right? If you look over the coach's right shoulder, his assistants are usually right there. So that was the metaphor that he was using, that it's a gigantic leap. And he did it. He did it multiple places. He was an assistant at multiple places, and he was a head coach at multiple places. And he had phenomenal success, certainly at Utah. There's no doubt about that. And so he used to speak about how big of a jump that was. And then you got guys like Bronco Mendenhall who tend to tell you like it is, saying, I had no idea what I was doing for the first year. Now, Morgan has been coach in waiting longer than Bronco was an assistant in terms of being coach in waiting. He was never really coach in waiting. He got the job, but he was an assistant, but he was younger. Morgan is now approaching his mid-40s, I believe, and he's known that this position was going to happen, and that's why he made pursuit of the opportunities because how long? I joked, and I know some people at the U thought it was funny when I would say coach in waiting. And here he is. He's been prepared as much as someone who hasn't done it can be prepared. There's no doubt about it. But still, I think you have to allow him to grow to a certain extent because no matter what, he will be a rookie head coach next year. Kyle Whittingham will be going into his 22nd year as a head coach. You have to allow Morgan an opportunity to grow. Now, hopefully for him and for Utah and for everybody else involved with the program, including people like me, because it's more fun to cover winners. The growth that takes place doesn't come at the expense of a whole bunch of losses. That's what you want. And I think that's what you're talking about. As long as Utah wins, it doesn't really matter what Michigan was doing, but it's going to be inevitable. Kyle and his family, they're a state of Utah football family, right? Mm-hmm. And they will always be a state of Utah football family. That'll never change. So we'll always look to that. It would be the same as if Kalani left and became a coach at Penn State, right? He's a BYU dude, plus he had 10 years at Utah, so he's a state of Utah guy. We would follow him. And I think for guys like you and me and Yak, we would want them to do well. I want Michigan to do well. I want Michigan to beat Ohio State 100-0 when they play next November. Absolutely, right? And so all these things go into it. But for Utah's sake, here we are. Now go. They got this bowl game. I think they'll win, and then maybe they'll lose some coaches. There's no question about that. But I still think that they can beat. And they beat Nebraska, and then they'll have an 11-win season, which is pretty good. Which actually an 11-win season even amps up the pressure even more on Morgan. But he knows all this, and this is the reality of the situation. We'll see what players they lose to and what they have to do in the transfer portal. But that's every team. It's just this year it's a little more pronounced for the Utes.
I think that, Morgan obviously is going to have to put a staff together here and he's going to lose some guys, but he was always going to have to do that at some point. It's just everything seems to be getting accelerated now. And I totally agree. I mean, the moving one seat over is more basketball talk, but Kyle Whittingham, when he coached his first game as a head coach, started his press conference with, man, these games are long, because he had to be dialed into every offensive play and he had to be dialed into every special teams play. And when you're a defensive coordinator, you turn around to talk to your guys, you go into a different mode. His first game, he said it. You're right about that Bronco quote. It's just something he's going to have to do at some point. He wanted to be a head coach, so here it is. Dive into the deep end of the pool. It's on. And
I do think Morgan is as prepared as he could possibly be for someone who's never done it.
All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Steve Cleveland joins us at the top of the hour. And then Yogi Roth at 9 o'clock. He used to cover the Pac-12. He's still covering USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. Who better than talk Michigan and Big Ten football with? Yogi Roth is here at 9. Stay with us.
Whirls around and down. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The artist of the day is The Offspring. Frontman Dexter Holland turning 60 today. It's brought to you by Live Nation. For all live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com. PK, you talked earlier about Whittingham being the story of the year. There's so many layers to it because he's not, we don't think he's the only guy who's going to be changing jobs here in short order. He referenced coaches still in bowls and playoffs, and at the point he said that, both BYU and Utah had to play their bowl games. BYU's obviously in the books now. And you made the point about, hey, Jay Hill's got to go, and you can't blame him because his path to BYU head coach got blocked when Kalani didn't go to Penn State and stayed, and they're the same age. I find it unbelievable that in the discussions leading up to this, that Whittingham and the Michigan AD didn't talk about who your coordinator is going to be, how you're going to build your staff, and can either your coordinators be the next head coach? Obviously, who knows if that AD will even be there to make that decision, right? And they'd have to win, and we'll see how things play out. But at least opens a path, and I think they had to have talked about it. And I wonder if we're going to look back at this, not just as a story of 2025, but when things really changed. When Utah went to the Fiesta Bowl and Sugar Bowl, we started hearing, hey, other schools are starting to look at recruiting Utah. How is Utah doing this? And when they won in the Pac-12, then it was on like everybody was recruiting here. Hey, they're beating us with these kids. We'd better get some of those kids. We've seen coaches leave here occasionally. Steve Cleveland, Mark Pope, college basketball, basically both going home to Fresno State and Kentucky. So it's not like we've never seen it. But I wonder if people will come here wholesale for coaches. This is a coaching tree, and there's personal relationships. And if it works, it's like, hey, there's good coaches there. It's not where people have shopped for coaches traditionally, but I just wonder if that's about to change. This didn't used to be a place they shop for players, and that changed. Maybe this changes the coaching thing.
It's a little funky to say it, but Utah, it's a great stepping stone. The last two football coaches have turned down Notre Dame and went to Florida and now go to Michigan. It's clearly a step up, right? Florida's leveled off, honestly, but Michigan, I mean, I think they're the winningest all-time college football program. They're Michigan, man.
Yeah, they do. They have the most wins ever. They'll tell you all the time.
I've been back there. It's right there with anybody. And as you say, with coaches leaving, I've had some inquiries, and I'm in potential discussions with getting jobs at Michigan's radio stations now too myself, because the opportunity to go and play Barton Hills Country Club might just be too overwhelming for me. You know what I mean? And I have really no family who wants me around anyway, so I'm okay there. But I think they've been doing that to a degree because Kalani had some opportunities. Obviously, Penn State was right there, the most highest profile immediately. But Kyle turned down opportunities to leave. Chris Hill turned down opportunities to leave. So I think within the industry, people don't look at Utah as some outpost with dirt roads and all this, covered wagons and all the stuff that Kyle likes to joke about. That's more of it's just a bygone era, obviously. And so people understand what's available here. And coaches too, I think this is a good thing that if you go to Utah and do well, that there's opportunities for you to branch out and coach literally at the highest levels. And certainly here, that's why I think if I'm Jason Beck and Jay Hill, I run to Michigan. It's obviously nothing negative about where you've been, but you are working for a 66-year-old coach. And if Jason Beck were to light up the scoreboard, just go theoretically here for the sake of argument, next year at Michigan. Okay, that's 3 years in a row because he did it at New Mexico. Oh, but can he do it at a higher level? Well, he did it at a higher level. He did it at Utah. Oh, can he do it at the highest level? So just assume for the sake of argument that he does it next year at Michigan. And, well, that's 3 years in a row. What level? Can he do it at the NFL? Is that what we were looking for next? I mean, he would have done it. The Big Ten, well, maybe he can't do it in the SEC. I mean, that's BS. If you're a great coach, you're a great coach. And it really doesn't matter which level. We've seen plenty of guys. The guy who took over from from Bronco, New Mexico, did a phenomenal job this year. Signetti, Eck. And he's got a personality too, a kind of a folksy guy that works well in Albuquerque. And Signetti did it at a lower level. And look at him. Wow. He's taken Indiana to beyond heights that they ever imagined. Nobody imagined that they would be this good. So if you can coach, right? And you have to be able to be adaptive. And that's the good thing with Kyle going to Michigan is this is a guy who is older, obviously, but he never complained about any of all these changes that had just happened dramatically in the 5 years here. It's all about, well, how can we adjust to them and still find ways to succeed? So if you can get these assistant coaches there and they have success, well, then both of those coordinators could have an opportunity to be the head coach at Michigan. What a dream that would be. And it would be a blow, but you can't count on having successful programs and keeping assistant coaches together forever. It just doesn't work that way. And then Morgan will have to go out and get guys to replace the guys that are leaving. And Kalani will have to go out and get guys. And I think it might be plural. I think Jay's gone. But there could be others
More.
because obviously there are connections that Kyle has had. The funny thing now, the BYU and Utah, in terms of the football programs, have never been more interconnected than they are right now, with relationships on both sides, players, coaching here, coaches, players there, all blah, 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 on and on. And so they have relationships both ways. And I do think both programs are going to be fine in that regard. I don't think that you could expect to have Jay Hill be here as a defensive coordinator for the rest of his coaching career. He's only 50 years old, and he wants to be a head coach. He's deserving of it being a head coach. He's proven that. And so, obviously, this is a great opportunity for him. You have to wish him well, and then away he goes. And we'll see what Kalani does. Does he go outside the program? Does he go inside the program? The great thing now is both programs are in great shape to attract people and to attract players. That hasn't changed. The names are changing a little bit, but I think the reps and the infrastructure of the programs are still as solid as ever.
I think all the local schools have to sell it. You got to take whatever the story is and sell it the best way you can. And so BYU and Utah have to say, hey, look at where these coaches have gone. So when they're out looking for whoever they think the next guy is, that's got to be part of their pitch. And for that matter, Southern Utah and Weber State ought to be telling that story, because once upon a time, Kalani was at Southern Utah. Once upon a time, Jay was at Weber State. Hey, you can get wherever you want to go, you can get there from here. These guys have already done it. That's the story. You might as well sell it and use it to your benefit. Don't run and hide from it. Embrace it.
Right. And I think that's what Eric Kerr is doing at Weber State as he assembles his staff.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. When we come back, Steve, Cleveland conference basketball season's almost here. We'll see what he thinks about the Jazz turnaround. And once upon a time, he had to be a head coach for the first time. What's it like when all of a sudden you're the one standing up and everybody's looking at you? We'll talk with him about that. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's been a great show so far. PK is on the Brian Windhorse career path. We're going to miss you, big guy. We don't have to, though. We got the technology now. You can do it all.
Well, they're going to have to come at me with a big offer. I'm going to have to get an exclusive individual Barton Hills membership. Have you looked it up yet?
The Whittingham beat is going to take PK back to Michigan. I did send a text right away. Got shot down. But maybe that was just to open the way for you. That could be what it was. I said, I think we need to be at that Oklahoma game. I think we need to be at spring football. I got back. No, period. That was it. Short answer. 2 letters. one small piece of punctuation. No, period.
Well, maybe. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Work it. Windhorse famously rode his connections with LeBron to a network career. This could be it, man. And people are saying you're late in your career. Well, Kyle's late in his career. Who cares? All the way to the top, PK. Let's go.
No, I don't have a career. I'm just lucky to show up each day and got a job. I'm a junk man. I continue to defy the odds. So, we'll wish Kyle well. We'll follow him from a distance and see what happens. Friendships, I don't think change. If they're real friendships, they don't really change that much over time.
No, that's why we always talk about somebody you haven't seen since high school or college, and you pick up right where you left off. That's why that expression exists.
He's going to have to find some time for the Eagles at the Sphere in Vegas, though. He's not getting out of that one.
He's not going to do this forever.
He's going to have to find some time here soon. We'll just leave it at that.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
Steve, we don't usually talk a lot of football with you, but coaching doesn't change that much from sport to sport. So I think we have a couple of questions after everything we've seen happen with Kyle Whittingham. When you've been one place a long time, like you were at BYU, and then you pick up and move to Fresno State. New president, new AD, new fan base, no boosters. Nothing you've done really matters. They're more worried about the storyline of their team. They're not so much worried about that. Even though you were going home and Kyle is not going home to Michigan, was there a little bit of culture shock having to start over at that point in your career?
I think culture shock is a pretty good way to put it, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew kind of what I was getting into, and I think we always feel like hope springs eternal, and we can fix this, we can fix that. It was a challenging time in my life in terms of coaching and just all the issues around our program. I think Kyle's in a situation which is significantly different in that, he's gone to a blue chip program in Michigan, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. I mean, he was so committed to Utah. He ends up stepping away. I don't know what his intentions were when he stepped away, but stepping into that Michigan job has to be a thrill of a lifetime for him and his family and everybody involved. And I'm excited to watch him play.
When you took over at BYU, I was a beat writer at the time, and everybody knew the program literally was in the worst shape that it had ever been. And so if you did anything that had any modicum of success that first year, it would be considered a successful year, which is exactly what you did, being able to, if I remember correctly, get to it was a bloated whack, and you had to qualify to get to the conference tournament, and you got all that there. Well, now with Kyle going to Michigan in a very real way, I think it amps up the pressure on a guy like Morgan Scalley, who's one of the better human beings that I've ever been around. But now, man, the spotlight was always going to be intense. Now, with Kyle still coaching, we're going to have at least a look and see what Michigan's doing. How do you handle pressure? Because I can recall talking to you multiple times. The pressure that you felt to win was enormous. And now you were trying to build a program. Now you got somebody, if they win their bowl game, which we expect they will have 11 wins, be 11-2, and expect to continue that. That's a high standard. Plus, in a figurative way, with Whittingham looking over his shoulder from Michigan.
Yeah, I'm sure, first of all, these guys are really good friends. They've worked together. They've been around each other for a long time. There's pressure that comes. I mean, obviously with Kyle, it's a huge cue. I mean, going to Michigan, coaching there, I think that Kyle will have to transition and he'll have to adjust. And I was just looking at some of the player in the transfer portal things that immediately jump out when a coach leaves and a coach takes a new job. And I suspect that there'll be some of those Utah guys that may be at Michigan here in the next week or two or a month. But it is challenging. And I think that for Kyle, he's prepared. He's done everything in Utah that he could do. And I think with Coach Scalley, yes, there will be some adjustments. But he spent a long time with Kyle. And they had a system, and I'm sure he'll tweak some things, and there'll be some different approaches to how he's going to do it versus when Kyle was there. But for the most part, Utah is on pretty solid ground. Now, what ends up happening is, I'm looking at 5 guys at Utah that may just hit the transfer portal and be at Michigan in a week or two. And so, you're talking about Daly and Danner and Ficklen and Buchanan and John Hall. These are all 5 or 6 guys that have to make decisions. Do I go into the portal Do I follow coach? Does Michigan want me? So there are a lot of unanswered questions, but I suspect that there'll be a few people from Utah that might join Kyle. And I don't know a lot about Michigan's program other than they're a blue blood program. They've been very successful over the years, and I can't imagine Kyle not embracing this and taking it to a level that maybe they've never been to. Who knows what will happen? But I know in the transition when you take over jobs, and you have a transfer portal, and you have situations where people are coming and going, and then you have other issues in terms of recruiting new athletes and guys that you have recruited, maybe that are freshmen or that have been committed, and then all of a sudden changes are made. So there's a lot of turbulence right now at Michigan as well as at Utah, but maybe more so at Utah. But Coach Scally is awesome, and I've known him and watched him. I'm excited for him. There'll be adjustments, and if Kyle ends up taking 4 or 5 of the better players from Utah, it'll make his job even more difficult. But I have trust and faith in that guy, man. I've been around him. I've watched him. I'm happy for him and his family.
I think Morgan should go get some of the last cuts from NFL training camps. That'd be my suggestion. Seems to be working in college basketball. Can you believe that guys who played in the G League and guys who've been drafted or guys who are in Europe or joining teams mid-season, go get yourself a pro? What are you recruiting high school kids for?
Yeah, I mean that culture and that environment has really changed, and you'd be foolish not to. You got to look at the portal. You got to look at transfers. You got to look at all of these things, and I don't know who's going to stay on the Utah staff and who's coming and who's going, but I suspect that Coach Scally, as a football coach or even in a basketball program, teams change. You can change things really quickly with the transfer portal and having opportunities to kind of poach a player here, poach a player there, and change things in your program. And I think when you start looking at basketball and I see what's happening there in the Big 12 and watching what's happened at BYU and the rebuilding job that's going on at Utah. Everybody is having a different experience, and right now it feels really good to be part of the BYU football program or part of the BYU basketball team. Things are there, whereas at Utah there's some change, and there's going to be rebuilding, and they're going to have to be working the portal and recruiting, and the Utah job situation is going to be much more difficult than what we've seen in BYU and how they've made their adjustments and made the transfer portal work for them, as well as really tapping into it's an international sport, and it's more so for basketball maybe than football, obviously. But between the portal and international recruits and finding guys that are third-year guys that maybe basketball that have been at wherever. They were at Weber State, and all of a sudden this guy has a chance to maybe jump into a program because there was a need there. So there is a lot of change going on. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited about seeing where Coach Scally goes and what he does and how he can get that football program, maintain it, and deal with transfer portal issues and those kinds of things. And I love what I'm seeing in terms of basketball, in terms of BYU and how they're using the portal and how they're bringing international players in. They're building that thing for the long-term success.
I don't know if you saw that Baylor is getting a guy who was actually drafted, and he's on their roster now. And Baylor's coach Drew saying, "Well, I mean, there are no rules, and so we find a way." And BYU adds a kid who did some G League stuff, so they're assumed professionals. Tom Izzo, I don't know if you heard that, but he went off on that, and he's a statesman now of the game.
Oh yeah,
he has such credentials and has the authority and the credibility to speak on these things. And so it seems like from the college basketball perspective, there are literally no rules. You can get guys who have been drafted. It used to be, you put your name in, that's it, you're done. Well, now none of that matters. And you're getting and we didn't really, and they did it to a degree with the European guys, and we weren't really sure how that played out, but we trusted the NCAA. But now when we see guys being drafted into the NBA and then going back to college, it seems crazy. And Izzo speaking out against that. And, you're not that much older than what Tom Izzo is, obviously. So there's a connection there. And it seems like if he's worried about it, what is the future of this game regarding guys who are being professionally paid and then still being able to come back to college?
Yeah, you know what? I have tried to wrap my head around this whole thing, and at times it just feels like everything's out of control, and there's so much change, and in terms of what's happening from one school to another, and whether it's increased scholarship money or whatever the finances are, here locally, we know that you have two basketball programs where at Utah we're rebuilding and changing, and it's a hard thing to go through, but it's not as hard as it would have been 5 or 10 years ago when you can get to a transfer portal, when you can get to Europe, when you can get, the world is your playground in terms of sport. And so you can fix programs, you can rebuild programs quicker than when you had to just go through the process of recruiting high school kids or recruiting JUCO kids and players and getting those guys in. It's much easier to change the environment of a program now than it's ever been because of the portal, because of money, significant money that is being used to lure players to come and transfer and come be a part of our program. And we don't have the statistics and things now, but it'll be interesting 5 years from now or 10 years from now to go back and look and just see what trended here, what happened here, and how has this played out, and what changes are being made. Right now we're in the midst of a hurricane, and everything is going every which way, and it's kind of fun to watch from the outside. I mean, it's if you're a college basketball fan, there's a lot of change. I think one of the things about BYU right now is that obviously, with Devonsa and Saunders and Wright, Kennard Davis, you got guys here that, except for Richie, we're not a part of the program. And yet, obviously, that staff has done a wonderful job finding players locally, internationally, transfers in every which way. G League, I don't think it's called the G League anymore, but we're recruiting young men from Europe and bringing them over who've been being paid. And I don't think the being paid thing it should be much of an issue anymore. Everybody's getting paid, and that's the rules, and that's how it plays out. And because of that, we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of transfers and a lot of different scenarios in terms of building a program and sustaining a program. And I used to think, in my lifetime as a coach, I wanted everything to be sustainable. I had control. We had control as a staff. We knew what kind of players we were looking for. And now the sustainability has a whole different look. And that teams can change from one year to the next, even in-season change transfers. So we'll have to keep a close eye on it. I think here locally we're fortunate to have, the NBA presence here. We're fortunate to have Utah and BYU and all the other local colleges, Weber State and Utah State. I mean, this is a great state to live in terms of basketball. There have been great coaches, wonderful players, and great success. So we're not going to change this thing. It's not going away. It's interesting to watch, and I'm sure there'll be a little bit of heartache, but for the most part, there's a real upside to this for coaches who can quickly change the environment of a program and rebuild. It's not going to take 2 or 3 years like it took us at BYU, where you go through 1, 2, 3, 4. It took us 4 years to get back to the tournament and win a conference championship. You can do this now in a matter of months.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, fellas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, join us. Yogi Roth will join us, talk Big Ten football. And Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. That's coming up at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Kyle Whittingham steps down, and Morgan Scalley has been elevated as the next head coach of the University of Utah.
I was a little confused by the steps down and not retired aspect of it, and I don't want to imply that Whit was pushed out, but certainly there was some interesting verbiage immediately after the Athletic was reporting that he would look at other jobs potentially if they became available to him. So if he wanted to keep coaching, why not just keep coaching at Utah?
Which is really strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the whole story.
I think it's as simple as he would listen. I think it's that simple. Honestly, do I expect Whit to take another head coaching job? I really don't.
No, he'll obviously listen, but why? Why isn't he listening to other jobs while employed at the University of Utah?
That was what was strange for me. Why now? Who made this decision? Was it Whit? Was it somebody else? I do think that is the huge question.
Catch Jake and Ben weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. There are so many stories, PK. BYU just finished 12-2. Only one loss, only one team beat them, and obviously it was Tech beating them twice. That's a very impressive season, and that got some comments. But everything's about Kyle Whittingham. My gosh, you posted a couple of things, and they have the phrase "blown up." It took over the internet. It's probably over the top. It's too much, but it might actually be case in this true, or it might be true in this case. Case in this true in this case. Kyle standing up there in the Michigan shirt. It's real. It's happened. Whittingham is running one of the biggest brands in college football, and he's about to take some more people with him.
Yeah, I think in terms of off the field, it's the biggest story in college football right now. Him going to Michigan is that big of a job, and he's that big of a name in the industry. And it's wild that way to where Michigan was just a few weeks ago. And the more story that broke, it was just awful that what happened, and just not just a coach losing his job, that's bad enough, but then all the other stuff that went around. And I wrote a piece on Friday morning for KSL Sports. I think we have it on KSLSports.com and KSL.com, that Michigan needed a squeaky clean dude here, and they got one. Yeah. Right? Kyle Whittingham, there's no baggage involved. This guy, if you're looking for sort of a Captain America in terms of football coaches available, that's him right now when you think about it, right? And then he can slide in, and there's no messy Lane Kiffin departure and all that stuff, right? Now, we'll see what he does, and he'll take some Utah coaches, and he'll take some BYU coaches. I think there's a chance, certainly Jay Hill, and then maybe even more than one, which then makes it plural. But there's no doubt in my mind he'll take Utah coaches, and those guys got to just be jumping at the opportunity to get back there for sure and work for him there at a premier program. Those chances in college football and in life don't come around very often. And here they are right now. So they got somebody, and that might cause some bad feelings with Utah. But, I mean, you did the same, right? You went and took Jason Beck, and you've done what your fan base might criticize Kyle for doing. You've already done. So basically shut up there. You don't have a leg to stand on.
It's how the game is played these days. It's just how the game is played. It was just a couple weeks ago that Penn State was going to take Kalani, and there are all sorts of rumors about, well, Morgan's tired of waiting for Kyle, and Morgan will go to Penn State. Never came to that, so it's hard to prove that, but I know you heard it, I heard it, and I am sure this town's so tightly wired, I'm sure a lot of our listeners heard it too. That ultimately didn't come to pass, and now this does, but it's just how the game is played. Head coaches are always going to lose good coaches, and they always have to have an eye out for young up-and-coming coaches, or realize, hey, this person got blamed for this over here, but they can really help me. I mean, look at Saleh with the Jets. That was a nightmare, but Niners are like, well, I don't know what happened there, but I know he can coach the defense here, and they brought him back, and he did good work last time and doing pretty good work this time.
Yeah, I think that the Penn State thing actually has a direct correlation, or direct effect may be a better way to say it, because Scally would have been interested. And I think that was part of the reasoning with Utah's administration. Do we want to start over? Because you'd have to get a new defensive coordinator basically 2 years in a row. Because Kyle, to his own acknowledgement, talked about retirement too much. And I had a guy who I think is pretty smart and has a lot of intelligence that people don't realize. He told me a few years back, don't be talking about retirement. Don't put it in the minds of your superiors that you want out. Because then they're going to start looking for your replacement. Right?
Yes, I did say that.
Okay, if you want to acknowledge who said it, I wasn't going to do that. But
It's
stuff
true.
when you tell me stuff that is life advice, you're not just saying it to say it. You've got some meaning behind it, and there's some thought process. And so I stopped doing that. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go as long as I can. When's that going to end? I don't know. But I'm not worried about that now. If they want me, I want them, and away we go. And we'll see where this thing goes. My passion is still there. I still love the job. It's no big deal to come to work after a vacation. I actually look forward to it. This is fun. When the story, and I knew it was going to happen to an extent that if Kyle was interested, Michigan was going to be interested. And I figured the national people from the Michigan perspective were going to break it. But I wake up Friday, I'm just as jacked as if it was 20 years ago. I immediately whip out the computer and start going to writing, put on a piece. Lloyd Cole calls me as I'm writing the piece. What are you doing today? I'm coming on the air with you. Because I knew that's what he was calling me for, right? And I'm ready to go. And that's the new breaking news still gets me excited, right? And so that's where Kyle kind of got himself to his own acknowledgement in a situation where he didn't want to be, because he frequently talked about the possibility of retirement. And then as he approached that age, I still got a lot of juice. I still want to do it. The fact that he's 66 to me doesn't mean anything, because I've been around him enough. We've been around him enough to know that he still has his intense passion. And in fact, and it could be like, this could be, he's not midlife, but could be an old life crisis, not in terms of motivation. He doesn't need to buy a sports car or a new motorcycle. He's got a new toy to play with that's going to get his energy, and that's University of Michigan football. And so Utah's sitting over here thinking, well, man, if we lose Scally, we got to start over from the defensive perspective, and then next year start over from the head coaching perspective. Well, let's try to handle it right now, since the man has talked about, well, this could be, I'm year to year. Now all of a sudden here, Utah's in this situation, and they say, well, would you think about doing it? And Kyle he immediately saying, okay, I don't want to overstay my welcome. Boom. He did say that, I think it was Jay Drew, who was back there yesterday because he was over in Florida covering the football game for the Deseret News. So he went over and did the press conference. How did they treat you? And he said, you treated me fine, and I probably shouldn't have talked about the retirement. So as I said earlier, I'm not going to crack on Utah for the way it was handled, because Kyle broached the subject independently of the university. And, he talked about Utah the last couple of years being year to year. Now he's talking about, I can go the 5 full years. This is no problem. So, and what are the Utes supposed to do over here, man? Oh, on our position, he's talking about that, well, he's year to year, and then now he's in Florida. I can go full 5, no problem, man. Let's put my hand in the dirt, ready, blow. I'm going to start recruiting. I'm going to hire a staff, and we're going to kick the crap out of Ohio State. Ready, break, family on 3.
All right, we got to back up. Now, I agree with most of what you said there. But, multiple things can be true. And he's going to sit at a press conference and say he was treated well. Because he's just not going to play it any other way.
No point in doing that.
Right. But, PK, he's a Whittingham. There is a chip on his shoulder.
Oh, no question.
There's a reason he says he's going 5, because he doesn't think he should have been pushed out. But he realizes I did, the rock slide happened because I kicked a pebble at the top of the mountain, and it hit one, and next thing you know, there was a big old landslide. I mean, he gets it. But at the same time, everything wasn't peaches and cream all the time, and he can't wait to show people he's still got it. Plus, new challenge. Michigan exists in a different conference with different access to the playoffs. They get treated differently. They've won more college football games, although Ohio State will tell you they don't have the best winning percentage, which is also true. But they won more football games. You know, Kyle's been to 2 Rose Bowls at Utah. That's great. At Michigan, they're like, we won the first one, 49-0. When we went back, we won 49-0 again. We're Michigan. It's just different there. I mean,
it is.
And making the playoffs would have been a huge accomplishment at Utah. At Michigan, that's the low bar. I mean, they're going to expect you to win once you get there.
Well, those are all facts, DJ. I agree with what you said. I have no qualms with what you said right there. Utah, Kyle took them to a ceiling, and he bumped up against the ceiling, right? Utah is an outstanding program, but it's not on that first tier. That first tier is very exclusive, and that's not a knock against Utah whatsoever. What they've done as a football program, what he did, what Urban did, what Ronnie Mack did, all great work, all legendary in their own rights, right? And Kyle leaves as the winningest coach in Utah history. A phenomenal job. Build a statue. Maybe this changes a little thing, but certainly he should get in that ring of honor. I think we all agree on that. And so with that being said, now he goes to Michigan, and it is a higher level. You can achieve more, with more pressure too and all that. And, you know, you're not going to get 5 years unless you're knocking on the door of the Final Four or Final Two just about every single year. That's the requirement there to be able to do that. And he knows that full well going in. And so, yeah, I get all that. It's just that I'm reluctant to dump on the Utes completely. Now, the Whittingham, I was speaking on that on Friday, the Whittingham revenge and Whittingham spite, that's enough to allow him to coach 10 years, let alone 5.
Tapping into a nuclear reactor.
Right. The whole family is legendary in that way. They are driven. They are motivated people. And, you know, I've spoken with multi-family members. I have not spoken with Kyle, but I've spoken with multiple family members here in the last 24, 48 hours. And everybody's fired up, man. Away they go. It doesn't diminish what he did at Utah. It's not like he scoffs, oh, screw Utah. It's not where it's at. It's this opportunity presented itself. It was weird. It's the weirdest thing we've seen probably in the 30-plus years that you and I have been working in this market. And it transpired in a way that was beyond a Hollywood script. Scorsese could have never come up with that. And these other famous directors, that's about all I know because he's an Italian guy. There's
it was a good one, though.
Yeah. Who's the ET guy? Spielberg? I guess. Spielberg. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have created this in any form of imagination that this would happen and it would come to pass the way it did. Well, here it is, and away they go. And he's going to attack this job as if he is a 30-year-old rookie trying to prove himself. Michigan got themselves a motivated winner, and that's what they have. And I suspect, I don't know that they're going to beat Ohio State. I'm going to hope that they do, but they're going to get the very best. I can argue they're going to get more at a Whittingham than Utah ever got because the fire that burns within that dude, he's passionate, he's sometimes stubborn, which may sometimes get in the way. They asked him what was his offense. What is he fair? I knew he would say spread. Why does he say spread? Because Fred Whittingham thought the spread was the hardest thing to defend. And so Kyle's just going to repeat what the old man said for years and years.
And he hit him with the running stats. We're going to run the ball. Look at our numbers. Only the service academies. He went right, which is true. I mean, they ran the ball. And how much of that is the offense? And how much of that is, you know, and maybe at Michigan you can have a couple of NFL draft picks in the O-line again next year. I don't know what their O-line looks like, or more specifically what it's going to look like after the transfer portal.
If you put your name in the portal and the University of Michigan calls and you are these positions that we know of, running back, offensive line, any spot on the defense, all 3 levels, go to Michigan. This dude will, if you have any NFL talent in you, he'll get it out of you And you'll make money at Michigan, obviously, because they're going to have tons of money, and then you're going to make money in the NFL. Those are facts. Now, if you're quarterback or receiver, okay, well, that's like with BYU when they used to have crappy facilities and they'd have recruits on campus. They wouldn't really show them that. They'd show them the other stuff. I mean, that's a blemish, right? You're going to have to overcome that. But I think, and we'll see what happens with Bryce Young here, because he's a big 5-star dude, and obviously he's looking to put in his 3 years of service and then go on to the NFL. I don't know what's going to happen there if he stays. He's been giving indications he wants to stay, but also I've heard some other stuff that there could be possibilities. And what does Dampier do? Dampier didn't exactly lock himself into Utah, nor should he, man. This is a freaking business for a kid like a Devin Dampier, who's not going to be an NFL quarterback. He might have NFL talent at another position, but the point I'm making is he needs to get as much money as he can right now, because that's real. And so he basically has to put himself out to bid. And loyalty, I don't want to hear about loyalty anymore. Forget it. Loyalty in college sports, it is gone. I don't want to hear about it, because you can complain, oh, Sam Levitt wasn't loyal. All right, well, he wasn't loyal at Michigan State, and now you expect him to be loyal at Arizona State? Well, he already showed he wasn't loyal. So what do you expect? If I go out and I'm dating and I fool around with a woman who's married, and then we get married and then she leaves, am I supposed to say, wait a second, where are your morals? Well, you already did it in the first place. Sam Levitt left Michigan State to come to ASU. Now the ASU people want to be mad that he's going to leave them? No, you took him from someplace else. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. And you may take Dampier. His high school coach is on ASU's staff right now. He's a full-time coach, was his high school coach down there in the Valley. And so what's he going to do? Explore your options, young man. And if Utah is your best option, fine. But if you can make more money and get in a situation where you follow Jason Beck to Michigan, more power to you. That's the world in which we live in. Then it's up to Utah to go poach somebody else. Or if they've got Bird, then Bird just steps in and away you go.
Well, now we're borrowing from tomorrow's show, but it is super interesting. What does Morgan want Utah's offense to look like? What they ran this year was great. How much of that was scheme? How much of that was personnel? How much of that can be replicated? Those are all huge questions, and Morgan's got to answer them right now. And I suppose what he does at offensive coordinator will tell us. I don't think they did anything schematically at Utah that was different than is being done everywhere else. I think it's the way they compiled all the options into seemingly every play call. There was always the threat of the fly sweep. There was always a threat of the running back. There was always the threat of the quarterback pulling the ball. So it was like a new version of the triple option. And there was always the threat of the quarterback going to pull the ball and not run it, but throw it into the area someone just vacated because they're coming up for run support. Now, how do you set it up so you have that every single play, which seemed like what they were doing to a large degree? I mean, maybe not on 3rd and 10, but a high percentage of their snaps, they had that. I don't know if the next offensive coordinator will do that. And, I mean, just connecting the dots, you want to hold on to a quarterback. If you get a 5-star quarterback and you play as a freshman, you want to hold on to him. He's obviously talented. But I would assume that all the major powers that need a quarterback are ready to tamper. And if he does leave, then as the offensive coordinator, while you figure it out, why not get a guy in who knows the offense for 1 year and can run it? Why not?
Oh,
if that's Beck's second choice, I don't have any idea. But if it is, it wouldn't surprise me. It would make sense.
Right. I mean, no matter, even if Kyle and Beck had returned, you have the nation's best offensive lineman leaving, and then you have another first-round draft choice leaving, and then you have 3 other seniors leaving. So it was going to look different. Different no matter what.
They had to rebuild it.
Nobody, every single coach returned, and every single player on offense minus the offensive line, it's going to be rebuilt. My guess is they're going to look for the transfer portal too and see what they do. That's the interesting thing, to see how Morgan rebuilds the offense, because even if Jason Beck and Dampier come back, 5 critical components, and Kyle talked about that in his press conference yesterday about winning the game in the trenches, and Utah has made a killing and a feasting off of that has gotten them a victory over Saban in the Sugar Bowl, that has gotten them 2 Rose Bowls and kicking the crap out of USC every time. That's what's going to be so fun. I can't wait for USC to get on Michigan's schedule and have Kyle beat Pretty Boy Lincoln again.
Again. I did see someone right away. Lincoln was trying to get out of the Big Ten. I saw people went right to that right away.
Well, maybe if Jason Beck goes to Michigan, that Lincoln can take Beck's job and be offensive coordinator at Utah.
I don't see that happening.
Okay, maybe.
Thanks for the suggestion.
If A-Rod goes to Utah, then he can go be BYU's coordinator and be in the Big 12.
Yeah, what is A-Rod going to do? How's this going to play out? All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whirls around and down. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer's strong play of the weekend.
4th and 10 from the BYU 18. Here we go. A knee-high snap. King, pressure from behind, throws as he's being hit, and it is picked off in the end zone. Aaron Johnson with the INT, and the Cougs will seal the deal and win the 2025 Pop-Tarts Bowl.
There's the Chevy Strong play of the game. Know it after 3 o'clock today. JJ and Alex will be here, and they will ask for it, and you will win fabulous prizes. There you go. 12-2, PK, but you don't get to enjoy anything in college football. You just move right along, and you can't complain about it because Ole Miss will tell you to shut up. We're in the playoffs, and we lost our coach. You lose a coordinator. We don't want to hear about it. It's just college football today. You don't really get to soak it up and enjoy it.
Well, I think you can enjoy it, though. I think that you have to expect guys are going to move on when you have success. It's a byproduct of success. And if you don't have success, guys are going to get fired. So you're going to have changes that way. And I'd rather have it that it be the byproduct of success rather than the byproduct of failure. This is the reality. The rosters are going to change. You have to take advantage of the rules that are available and go with it. And there's no point complaining. Now, Kalani has made a big deal about complaining. I thought he should have complained a little bit more about the lack of respect that they got from the playoff committee, but that's not the way he wants to approach it. So be it. You're sitting there at what are they, 23-4 over the last 2 years? These are great times in BYU football, and they need to be acknowledged as great times in BYU football. It's not just the old days that were great. They're great right now. And how do you use that to your advantage? Jay Hill, gone. Okay, fine. Aaron Roderick, I think he probably is gone too. It's a situation with him. He has extreme loyalty to Kalani, but I think in his life he's better suited at Utah for other reasons. So with that in mind, if it comes to pass, so be it. Wish him well. Then you should be able to get premier opportunities. Do they move Fesi Sitake up? The great thing about BYU in the last few years, and we've talked about it, is that their coaching staff, it's not an entry level into being a head coach. It's not an entry level into being a D coordinator. It's guys that have experience, and I believe that there'll be a bunch of candidates out there, especially now because they've loosened up some rules and things that allow people to be employed by the football program, by the athletic program, that weren't the case. I once had a guy tell me that he couldn't work at BYU. The coach wanted to hire him, but the fact that he did not go to church, he was an LDS member by baptism at an early age, but he had long since stopped going, and now he couldn't get a job. And he said he would have been better if his name would be taken off the records of the church. And I said, why don't you do that? He said, because my mother would then be mad at me. And so with that in mind, it looks like that has changed. That has loosened up a little bit. The point being, you can get some other candidates that maybe you couldn't get before. So there's no doubt in my mind they can get qualified people, and you're going to get hungry people too. Because when you take a new job, we've all been there. When you take a new job, what do you want to do? You want to show them, man, that their faith in you is justified and you want to knock it out of the park. So get beyond the fact that you've lost coaches when it comes to that. When it does come to that, I think it will be when, not if. And so move on from that and then go address your needs. What do you need? Do you want a running back out of the transfer portal? You didn't take one this past year, and LJ Martin came through. Now, does he go to the NFL? I think he should if he's an opportunity to get drafted and all that stuff. So go get yourself some reinforcements, and away you go, man. If you turn in another double-digit season, it's time to really talk about Kalani as being, obviously we got Lavelle Edwards, but being shoulder to shoulder with Lavelle Edwards, because what he's doing is just flat out amazing so far.
I like the part about the hungry coaches. Everybody's got something to prove, and these jobs are launching pads. We've talked about that this morning. They've all got people they can point at, like, come here. If you succeed, college football will notice. You will. You will be rewarded, and all of this. I don't know if we can say all of it. All of this. All
of it.
All of this is because Penn State came calling for Kalani. Maybe it would have happened anyway. I mean, Morgan wanted the job and had been the coach in, what did you say? The coach in waiting.
Waiting.
Today. I am waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it would have triggered it anyway. But the whole thing with Penn State certainly didn't hurt.
No,
but it might have happened anyway.
It might have, but I think it prodded, and has a direct line that you can draw to where we are today. And it was going to happen at some point. If it wasn't going to happen this year, well, we would go through the same song and dance next year. So from Utah's perspective, at least now it's over. You don't have to worry about, well, is Kyle coming back? Blah, blah, blah. You know, is Morgan going to leave because he's tired of waiting? You've settled that, right? And so that's over. And I think in a sense, it's good that it's over, because it was hanging over your head there by Kyle's own acknowledgement, by him considering it. And the guy, if you ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer. So I can't really criticize him for talking about it when he was asked about it. And then once he opened the bag a little bit and the cat's out, so to speak, then it became more often asked on and on. I asked him, he made fun of me when they kicked the crap out of ASU in the post game, and saying, "Oh, you got nothing to say now," blah, 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 blah. And, I asked my question was later in the press conference, how's it feel to be ASU for the last time, meaning that he would never coach against ASU again? Well, turns out I was right.
Yes. You're the only one who remembers, but yes. Well, he might remember. He might remember you said.
Oh, he remembers. He remembers. He likes to chide me, and we go back and forth and all that stuff. And that's why I want to show up at a Michigan press conference and ask him some off-the-wall question and see how he responds, or a Michigan post-media practice type of thing, such session. I'm going to do that one way or the other. I can't let this go by. And plus, I think people have natural interest here locally.
100%.
He will be followed. There's never been a coach who left here who will be followed more. And I can argue there's never been a player who's left here. Now, college players, when they leave back in the day, they would go on to the NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say Steve Young was kind of followed in the NFL. But to say that he would top Urban, because Urban was certainly followed, but it just runs so deep with Kyle. With Urban, it was someone you met, but with Kyle, it feels like someone you know.
40 years of history, if you include his playing days, and then getting into coaching at Utah and staying here and all that stuff. Yeah, we've never had this. Okay, maybe Steve Young is the example or the exception, but other than that, even at the NBA level, all the players who've left the Jazz, I don't think they'll have this type of interest that Kyle Whittingham will be having. We'll be showing all the TV stations, including Channel 5, which is the only television station I watch now, that will be showing Michigan highlights next season. There's no doubt about that, because we're going to be interested.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try and watch whole games. It's tough because we got a lot of local teams to watch, but that becomes like one more local team you want to try.
I may buy Michigan season tickets.
Now you're talking. Good luck with that. I think there's a waiting list, PK. But there's a strong secondary market. Make it happen.
I've got an in now.
You do. You do. DJ and PK coming up next. Yogi Roth joins us. He was covering the Pac-12. Now he's covering the Big Ten. What does he think of Kyle Whittingham to Michigan? And how would he rank the top dogs in the Big Ten? We'll get to that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We have so many things to get to this week, PK. But good. Kyle's the story today. The Jazz, that was two really good wins, beating Detroit, the top team in the East, beating the Spurs, who had just beaten the Thunder twice and had gone 8-1 in their last 9.
Just what they don't need.
6-6 in their last 12.
I want a bunch of moral victories that are accompanied by losses. That's what I want.
The overtime defeats are the best defeats, right? Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Right there for 52 minutes. It's that 53rd minute that got you.
Yeah, that's what I'd prefer, actually.
We'll get to all of that. We'll get to all that coming up later this week. But the big story right now is Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, and who's he taking with him? I think everyone feels like it's a foregone conclusion that he'll steal Utah's offensive coordinator and BYU's defensive coordinator. But position coaches, too, usually coordinators get to take somebody, and there's usually somebody they really want to take. So it'll be really, really intriguing to see the trickle-down effect. We're joined right now by Yogi Roth. Yogi Roth used to talk about the Pac-12 all the time. Now he talks about the Big Ten a lot. Kyle Whittingham, does this feel like old home week for you?
Yeah, it's great, man. Every once in a while you don't have to do homework, This is one of those times where I'm like, I've got to tap into that memory bank, pull up some old notes, get some Google Sheets out. But no, when it all shook out at Utah, and you guys know that, I'm sure, way better than I do, my first thought once the Michigan stuff broke was like, Kyle Whittingham, Chip Kelly. I was like, that'd be a fun duo. Like, run it back. Why not have something fun like that up in Ann Arbor? I know we didn't get all of that, but we got Kyle there, and I didn't know if it would happen. Oftentimes you're looking for so many different things, whether it's stability or a hot name. But to me, from the jump, my gut said Kyle would be pretty cool. Like if you're a program that needed stability, like Michigan clearly does, there's not a better image of that in terms of discipline. All the things that you know him to be. So I didn't think it would actually become reality, but here we are. And I can't wait to get to Ann Arbor and get around Coach Witt again. And I'll tell my colleagues, like, all right, production meeting. He's going to be sweaty. He's right after a workout or a swim. Going to come in, 20 minutes, in and out, boom, 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 get your questions ready. So I'm ready for it, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, obviously you've dealt with him for many, many years. It's a wild situation in college football. I mean, I'm not over the Pac-12, but I'm getting through it. And as a Pac-10/12 guy, now I'm actually glad in a sense because he's going to the Big Ten, but he's not going to an old Pac-12 school. He's going to Michigan. And the thought being, well, you're taking this guy who's built a phenomenal career out here in Utah, now going to Michigan. He's not a Michigan guy. Well, we've been around Kyle literally for 30 years. I count him among my friends. And with that in mind, I don't really care that he's not a Michigan guy because I think you can put him anywhere on the planet and he'll win. How do you think that he'll be perceived by Michigan people because he isn't a Michigan guy? I don't think it's a big deal, but, for them, they might.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think to your first point, and you know him longer than I have. I met him 20 years ago when my beloved Pitt Panthers got drilled by your beloved Utah Utes in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
But from that moment on, I've got my iteration of Kyle Whittingham. And among all the leagues that he guided Utah to and to the top of, there was a part of me, especially when, I live down in L.A., when I go back to like the upheaval of times in L.A., whether it was Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Clay Helton, whenever there was movement, I always, when I was asked, and you always get asked this by ADs or people in charge, and I remember talking to Pat Hayden at the time, and I said, Kyle Whittingham, just go make the hire. To me, my point is that, it felt like, and this is with, the most respect I have for Utah, but of like, is there a bite at the apple at like a blue blood program for Kyle Whittingham in his career? USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. There's been overtures of him over the years. You guys have covered them with tremendous depth. I've been around them with a decent amount of depth. My point is that like once the last SC kind of domino fell when Clay was hired and he was there for a long time, and then they brought in Lincoln Riley. Like it just felt like from that moment on, we're talking 4 years ago, like we were always counting down. Is this it for Kyle? Like, is this it for Coach Witt? I always thought that in my final interview at the Rose Bowl. Is this the last time I'll interview him? And then the next year, is it the last time? And you never, to me, that ship sailed in my mind of taking a shot at a big blue blood program. Now, in the most unique of circumstances, right? Again, like the details better than myself. Now he gets his shot. So to answer the question about like, do you have to be a quote unquote Michigan man? I'll say this. I think that there's certain fan bases that, best way to say it, like are just incredibly obsessive about their program. Michigan's one of them. Ohio State's another one. You could also argue like at times ridiculous. Like it means so much. It's so personal. I mean, I feel this way just calling games in the Big Ten. Like I don't even look at social media anymore as a broadcaster. Because after the game, if the team loses, it is like the most amount of vitriol in a week than I had in a year calling games in the Pac-12. Like it's just a different level of, call it what you want, care factor, the 10% fanatical part of the fan base. It's a little over the edge. But, yeah, Michigan has that for sure. So, yeah, they start off and they beat Oklahoma. It's going to be the second coming, right? They lose that game, and it's going to be, I told you, we needed to get fish, or we needed somebody younger. So that is what that fan base is. Kyle's built for it, though. He truly is. He's not a guy that I don't think he's, like, insular of the noise, like he's aware of it. But I think we've been around him to know that, like, it's never going to impact him in terms of his decision-making or how he's going to lead. I was just talking at the gym about to a Michigan State player, former Michigan State player, a few minutes ago. He's like, what's it going to be like? And I said, it's going to be his way. His way isn't demeaning. His way is, he's got a standard. He's going to know how it works. The players are going to be, the standards are going to be very clear from the jump, and they're going to fall in love with it. And then they're going to go into what I think is the most competitive league in the country. Every game comes down to a 2-minute drive. Over 30 games this year, one-possession games. So can, Bryce Underwood, is he going to come back? I think so. How do they develop him? I think you have to be a pure passer in this league. Like, I think you need an NFL quarterback. He's going to have to take the next step in that regard for them to win those tight games in this league. But they'll have every opportunity to do so. And if they do, they'll love him. And if they don't, it'll be 3 years and move on to the next iteration. That's just kind of how in a lot of these big-time programs.
How does it play when Urban Meyer, Ohio State, the evil genius, everybody at Michigan hates him, when he starts talking positively about Kyle, which he's already done, the clips are already all over social media, and he starts talking about how smart he is and how tough he is and how he's going to root for him in every game except the one. How does that fly? Does that buy Kyle credibility when it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal, or is that all dollar-driven anyway, so it doesn't really matter? What do you think? Because it's a weird dynamic, but it could be a powerful one.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think the good thing about, like, you look at Utah's placement on the map, and you look at like what they've done in college football. To me, it's cut through a lot of conferences. They've always been a team that. Let's just go back to our Pac-12 days together. If you said to me, you got to take a team and put them up against anybody in the country, I would have always picked Utah. I just would have. Like, roll into Gainesville, roll into Tuscaloosa, roll into Ann Arbor, roll into Columbus. Like, I just would have picked them. And then when Dan Lanning got to Oregon, like, obviously I'd pivot to them. But I say that because people know the brand of Utah football. I never felt and still don't feel like Utah gets the respect that it deserves because it doesn't have the Michigan history, which I don't like or agree with, but it is a reality in terms of just like the traditional fandom or, votes given in an AP poll, right? Or just the respect given of a logo. But those that know the game, those high school coaches in the Midwest or those obviously college coaches, those media members that follow the game, like everybody knows. So I think you just add to it when it's Urban Meyer, when it's anybody, any of our colleagues that are raving, and everybody has, because it's the truth. Oftentimes when anybody gets hired, you pull the best quotes, and everybody does it, and it's great, and everybody believes it at the time. But Kyle's just got such, to your point, a history behind him and what he has done and how he has done it. It's been so consistent, and if they could nail the offense, like, I don't know who, and I know the rumors that are out there, but if he nails that, you could argue his style of coaching, the pedigree of his teams, the demeanor of his teams fits much better in the Big Ten than it did in the old Pac-12. Just based on teams don't score. Like, I'm calling games every weekend the last 2 years, fellas, and it's 10-7 at the half, and I'm like on fire. So I'm like, this is great. And you take a step back, I'm like, whoa. Each team's at 3 possessions, But that to me is built kind of how Kyle has always built his teams: special teams, toughness, defense, physicality, win up front, win in the trenches, then get an elite player to make plays at the end of the game. And I think this league is going to be fit for him. He's got a potentially premier quarterback. They have upgraded at wideout. They had 3 redshirt freshmen starting the offensive line. I don't think guys are going to leave. You get paid. It's a huge program. It's an awesome blue blood. You're bringing in a literal Hall of Fame coach. Everything I've heard at Ann Arbor is like, let's go to work. Like, these guys can't wait. They got a bowl game, obviously, and then they get rolling on next season.
One thing that we've seen, and I've actually loved about Kyle, is that when you start to praise him, he'll just always deflect and go to the players. It's all about the players. It's all about bringing in the right recruits. And we know what he's done, his ability. I was talking to Tom Homo the other day. I wrote up a story for the website that I write with. And, Tom played with him at BYU. And then obviously he went on to 49ers career and then in coaching. And he talked about, I think he didn't remember, he was either recruiting for Cal or Stanford. And he was on the sidelines at some high school in the summer and some 7-on-7. And there's a bunch of coaches there. And he looks on Kyle's sheet, and the names that he has written weren't the names that other guys had written, meaning that Kyle had the ability to see something in somebody and then see where they would be into the future. And I guess Eric Weddle might be the best example about that, but clearly he's made a living and a thriving living with a thriving program off the ability to recruit these kids that maybe other teams didn't see, change their positions or what have you. Now you go to Michigan and you can get the cream, right? Now, obviously that's been their bread and butter for many, many years. How do you think he'll do with these recruits that are, at least on paper, will be more accomplished coming into the program than what he had at Utah?
Yeah, what a great question. Devin Lloyd comes to mind, like so many.
Yeah, there you go.
Whenever there'd be a new coach that would come into the Pac, the old Pac-12, they'd always say the same thing to me, whether it's on the record or off the record, which is, we want to be like Utah. Meaning, when they offer somebody, we're going to offer them. When you see Utah on the schedule, like, it's a tough out. Like, you better be dialed and ready or you're going to get drilled, like, and so on and so forth. Because of what you just pointed out, identification, development, edge, toughness, etc. Now, here we go into a totally new world, right? There's probably more 4 or 5-star players on today's Michigan roster than the last decade or last 5 years of Utah football. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's probably true. It's the way that place has recruited. So, yeah, you're right. Like, how are you going to manage call it what you want, whether it's overpraised or praised too early, overpaid, spoiled, like all the iterations of however you want to describe, like, big-time recruits, because it's all fair. The good thing that I will say that Michigan has had from Jim Harbaugh through Sharon Moore, Biff Poggi, they haven't had a lot of those types of prima donnas, if you will. They've had big-time recruits for sure, but it's not like it's different in L.A. It just is, like in terms of like the skill players, the style, the whole thing. Like Ann Arbor is a pretty blue-collar community, at least from how I view it in my times that I've been up there. So I don't think it'll be as big of a deal. I also think really quickly players are going to understand what Coach Witt is all about. And to your point, I don't see him as a guy who comes in and screaming my way or the highway. I think he's quietly, sternly saying, you're either all in or you're in the way, and this is how we're going to go win a national title. And this is how you're going to get to the NFL. This is how I've done it. And you already on paper should be more talented. So let's go to work, fellas. Like, he's just got a demeanor that we know is to the point, but he's not demeaning. I've never seen that. I've never been around him in that regard, and I've never heard from a player in that regard. He's highly respectful. And I think what I love about him the most as a coach is that he has adapted. I mean, we did the documentary series, The Drive, in 2015, I think it was, where we followed every part of Utah football, unearthed it. And it all didn't make air, but you got to see behind the curtain. And I was a producer on that show. So you're watching cuts, or you're there and you're filming things, or whatever it might be. And I can remember, like, a couple of years later, the portal shows up. And Kyle's saying, if a kid decides to transfer or wants to test the portal, like, he doesn't see ya. And then I remember 2 years later, I think it was Mekhi Bernard dipping in and coming back, and he was like, I got to adapt with the times. Like, that's just not what it is. And I say the same thing with paying players and NIL and rev share and all of those things that are now part of real-life college football, especially one that has every resource you can dream of. I think it's going to be an absolute dream for Coach Whittingham in that regard. And I don't think he's going to have a problem adjusting to personalities, families, agent. Like, it's such a machine that if he can get it right, which I think he will, he's going to be fine. I mean, the fun part will be us observing who comes with him and who doesn't. Like, who managed the front office at Utah, who's going to manage the front office there. Do they maintain the GM who's highly qualified? Like, I don't know if any of those details may have broke already today. But that's going to be the part of, like, do people want to be a part of Coach Witt and a shot at Michigan, or do they want to be a part of Morgan Scalley and the shot that you have at Utah? Both equally applicable to go to the playoff. How fun would it be if they were playing each other this time next year? I'd love it. Who wouldn't love that type of drama and just the cinematography around that bad boy? It'd be incredible. But that'll be the part of it. But I don't think five-star, big personalities, oh, my God, Kyle Whittingham can't manage it. I mean, he'll be just fine in that regard. Let's not forget Cam Rising was a five-star quarterback who committed to Oklahoma, went to Texas, found his way to Utah, and away it went. Like, he can manage. I'm not worried about that one iota.
It does appear, Jay Hill, defensive coordinator at BYU, who everyone here has very high regard for, and everybody here already thinks, man, he could succeed Kyle if this goes well. If it doesn't go well, then they blow it up again, and who knows. But if it goes well, Jay had an awesome run at Weber State. The more you get to know him and the more you dig into that, the more you'll be fascinated, Yogi, because you're a football guy and he's a football guy, and you two will probably click if you haven't already. But Jason Beck on offense, and that offense, 41 points a game. Now, twice they ran into a defensive line that they couldn't – well, once at Texas Tech they couldn't move them at all. And BYU they kind of sort of could, but they blew it on fourth down and couldn't convert some big fourth down plays. And I'm curious if you watch that offense and if you think that it was because they had the Outland Trophy winner at one tackle and a first-round draft pick at the other tackle and three seniors in between them, or – if there's something Jason Beck is doing using the fly sweep, the handoff, and the quarterback keeper as kind of a triple option, a different looking option, but an option nonetheless. And also their ability, and I don't understand exactly how this works, but he can pull it and he has the chance to pass it. And I think somehow they're putting defenders in a 3-on-2, 2-on-1. Kyle said once at a press conference, it's a great offense because sometimes no matter what a defender chooses, it's wrong. They literally can't choose right. Now, Texas Tech could choose right. They dominated, right? There was one good drive in that whole game for Utah. How much of that do you think translates regardless of talent, and how much does it count on Michigan having an awesome offensive line and all these 4 and 5 stars you talk about?
Yeah, well, two things there. Definitely Coach Hill. I called a couple Weber State early non-con games back in the day, and you're right, like so impressive. And I, selfishly, I hope he goes just to, interview a really talented defense coordinator in advance of a game. Same thing, Coach Beck on offense. Have tracked his career for a while now. If that comes to fruition, like everybody's anticipating, it'll be awesome for Michigan. To your point, they are impressive up front, and it is so cliche, and it is also so accurate in the Big Ten. If you can't move mountains, you don't have a chance. You could dress it up however you want, but you don't have a shot. And that's what makes this league really fun. And it's really hard to tell on tape. It's really hard to tell on TV. But you go watch Iowa practice in training camp, and it is like, whoa, this is a different type of group up front. You go watch Ohio State practice, and it's the only team that's ever reminded me of the teams I coached on at USC with the amount of competitive depth. You go watch, like, I just can't keep going around the league. You can go to Minnesota. You know, like, it is a tough out, and gimmicky stuff doesn't work. And I don't think Jason Beck is that. When you watch them, you know, it's a sound run game that'll travel. Imagine now the quarterback in Bryce Underwood doing that. Bryce is a monster. I mean, he's all 6'3", 6'4". He's going to be 240 by the time next season starts, and he's a true freshman. He's as serious as they come. He's got a cannon. He's got to work on his touch. He's got to work on his footwork, all the things that any second-year player in college needs to focus on. But he's a gifted player. I mean, so gifted. So you add that, the receivers, they finally kind of got a couple playmakers. That's always been an issue to me that I can never understand it at all, of all places, Michigan. But they have that going a little bit. They'll be fine at running back. And defensively, they're always big time, you know, in their front seven and at corner. So I think it'll fit in well. I really do. The challenge in this league, as I kind of said earlier, is that it is 5 plays a game that can impact this thing if your QB's right. And I just keep coming back to that. Like, year one for me, call games in this league, the biggest disappointment was quarterback play. It was disappointing. Year two, it was the most talented quarterback room in the history of the Big Ten. And I've checked that with, like, the Jerry DiNardos of the world. Am I crazy? Because you look around the league and it's like, oh, God, it's a dude everywhere. And it's only going to increase, A, because of money, B, because of prestige, B, because, you know, again, you just keep kind of going down the list of why quarterbacks that I talk to are like, I want to go play there. I want to go know what that's like. Every weekend is sold out. It's bonkers. I'm calling winless Rutgers, winless Purdue, and it's 95% capacity like it's a CFP. You know, like, it's crazy. So that'll be a really fun element for these systems. But, yeah, do they translate? For sure. Not worried about it at all. And I think anytime I've been around coordinators that have been around ball for a long time, give them more talent, give them more physicality, give them more next-level players. None of them are going to complain. So, yeah, I think it'll transition just beautifully.
So now, Yogi, the Utes obviously turn to Morgan Scalley. Here's a guy that you know. Here's a guy that we know, actually, ironically enough, the year after he stopped playing, and there was a year in between before he went into coaching, and he did sports radio, and he was on the show that ran at 10 o'clock in the morning when our show stopped. We've been doing this show for almost 25 years now, and we got to know him. We already knew him, but we got to know him better. We love the guy. We want him to have as much success as possible. He's a great human being. I really can't think of anybody better if I'm going to start listing human beings. But he's a rookie head coach. At the same time, I don't know that there's a rookie head coach who's had as much preparation for the job without having done it than Morgan will be. We certainly want him to succeed. But I'm a little nervous because there's growing pains. Just give us an assessment of what you think that the Utah fans can expect out of Morgan Scalley.
Well, he's, talked about a Michigan man before. This is a Utah man I am, like, through and through. I remember calling his game back in the day and watching him practice in that finale against my Pitt Panthers 20 years ago. We're like, yeah, he's going to be the next head coach there. And it's been a twists and turns here and there, but now that's the reality. I think he's been waiting for this job forever, and every alumni is. And sometimes you're right; it doesn't go beautifully. I've watched that, and it rips your heart out when it doesn't. There isn't anything in me that says it's not gonna go extremely well. Now, define extremely well. You're going to Big 12 championships every year. Are you competing for Big 12 championships every year? The latter, for sure. That should be, to me, the floor. I mean, this is a 9 to 11, 12 win team every year. That's what Utah football is, right? It dipped, obviously, with all the injuries in the last couple seasons in advance of this one. Coach Whittingham even referenced why he came back for this one at Utah. And I say that of like, tell me if you would know if this is 100% true, but everything I've been told out of Salt Lake City is that over the last couple of years, he's just been given more responsibility. Like,
yes,
almost like given, yeah, there you go. Like, been taken into the head coach's office more, head coach's mind more, decisions more, roster management. So I'm not worried. I mean, the challenge will be replacing the staff if it is accurate, everything we're kind of talking about and who leaves. You know, when you're at one place for a long time, I do think, like, you know that place really well. That's the positive. And then what is your community of, like, what fits in here really well? Like, and I'm sure Morgan has had to have his eye on who would I elevate, who would I promote. You know, the OC thing, as we all know, at Utah has been, you know, up until Andy Ludwig returned, a relative revolving door, you know, to be fair. And then obviously it changed again this year. So I'd imagine Morgan, having seen all of those changes, knows what fits there and knows how to attack that thing. So that'll be the challenge, I think, of the first time making hires and saying, okay, this guy's going to coach my QBs, what's going to happen in this position group and that position group, and how does that affect recruiting? And, like, those are the pieces that I think are massive. You know, being, I think, into the head coach's office is one thing. Managing 50-plus staff members, that's just another. There's a different layer there. And every head coach will go through this, Morgan included, of year one, like, you'll want to be, because you're so enthused, you'll want to just have your hands on everything. You know, I've talked to head coaches in year one where they had to approve every social media graphic. And the social media person's pulling me to the side, you know, in a training camp, or you calling me and say, yo, like, can you give this guy a call? Like, they're killing me. Well, you know, like, little things like that, I think, just happen. They're almost like a rite of passage, I think, for first-year head coaches. So I'm sure this time next year, like everyone, he may say a version of, yeah, I got to, like, loosen the reins a little bit on everything. But you're so jacked. I mean, he's wanted this job forever. It's the only job he's ever wanted. How lucky is he to get it? He's had to move his family. He's been there since he was a player. I mean, it's a beautiful story. And, you know, like you, I'm rooting for him on every level. And I don't think it's like pie in the sky rooting for him. Like, they're going to go win. You know, they're going to go win big. And he should, in 20 years from now, make his decision if he wants to step down and shut it down and call it a career. How lucky would Utah football be if that was the case and they had that type of stability?
So we have been doing this show a long time, and we knew Kyle pretty well when he was defensive coordinator and he wanted the job, and he got passed over when Ron McBride was pushed out, and then he got it after Urban. And he started, to your point about learning curve, Yogi, he was 16-13 after 2 years and a month. It was a struggle. And that 13th loss, they got shut out like 27 or 28 to nothing at UNLV by a not good UNLV team. And I remember asking PK after the show one morning, we talked about it all morning, I asked him off the air, I'm like, I thought Kyle was going to be a great head coach. And now he's sitting here, I'm like, is he going to make it? And PK looked at me, he thought about it, he took it very seriously, and he says, it's 50-50. And Kyle, from like that game on, went 41-7, and the Sugar Bowl was in that run. And I mean, 41-7. So to your point, you got to figure some stuff out. I mean, obviously the challenge is under those rules in the Mountain West versus under these rules in the Big 12. It's a little apples and oranges. But what doesn't change is there are new challenges, and Morgan's got to figure them out. And how long that takes, a week, a month, a year. Urban Meyer seemed to figure stuff out pretty quick. It never took him very long, but he's Urban Meyer. So we'll see what Morgan does.
Yeah, well, he also had a shot at Bowling Green.
Yeah, but he went 9-3 his first year at Bowling Green, so or 8-3.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, and he's a Hall of Famer. So you're right. Like it's like I could recall, and he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but you know, I met up with Deshaun Foster the other day, and Deshaun's been a dear friend forever. He got a chance to coach his alma mater. It was weird circumstances how he got the job. Right, had to keep a bunch of the guys on the staff, and then, you know, gets fired at, you know, less than a month into year two. And I just say all that of like, I don't anticipate that happening to Morgan Scalley by any stretch of the imagination. But what Deshaun and I often talked about was like the pieces that you have to put together, like really have to fit. And they don't just have to fit in your mind. They have to fit within a fiscal budget. They have to fit within a conference. They have to fit within a recruiting footprint. They have to fit within just personality traits. Like, there's so many things that are far beyond, can this individual call plays? Can this individual motivate young athletes? Like, there's so many things that go into the dynamics of a staff, that go into the dynamics now of these programs. I mean, he's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You know, that's just what it is. And his board is everybody who's paying for the NIL, including, you know, Mark Harlan and president and so many people. But I think that because he's been in these rooms with Kyle for so long, and he's got such a network of highly successful people in his life, whether that's the Eric Weddles that he played with, whether that is Urban Meyer, who he played under, you know, like I just think that he's going to be able to, and knowing Morgan, not as well as you all do, but I've known him for 20 years now. Like, he's not going to be one of those guys, I don't think, that's going to have every answer. I think he's going to be able to say, you know what, let me take a beat on this. Let's get back to it. You know, like, I think it's going to be really thoughtful, because he is really thoughtful. I think in all my interactions with him have been nothing but, you know, incredible. So I'm looking forward to him getting a shot. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that don't get their shot as a head coach. And you guys, I think, would agree. You've met so many along the way, and the narrative has to hit, the team has to hit, the openings have to hit. So I'm just excited that he's got, you know, an opportunity at the job that he's been waiting on for a long time. He's turned down a lot of defensive coordinator opportunities, a lot of other coaching opportunities to be there. And I can't wait to get him going. And now he gets this bowl game. Here we go. What are you going to do with situational football now? You got to manage the offense. Are you going to go for it on fourth down? Like, those are the things that, if I was calling it, I'd be saying, all right, all these new decisions would be so intriguing for me as a broadcaster watching a first-time head coach do it.
Yogi, we appreciate it as always. Great to talk to you again, and we'll look forward to seeing you covering the Big Ten.
Hey, maybe this will bring us back together. You know?
Right?
I always love talking to you.
Thank you,
Come on,
Yogi.
there's a chance. There's a chance.
All right, see ya.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, there's Yogi Roth. Used to cover the Pac-12, now he covers the Big Ten. We're going to take a break. When we come back, everything you missed in this show. Next, stay with us. Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit their website at trajanwealth.com. What have we talked about all morning? Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, who might be going with him. We've only gone into coordinators. We haven't gone down into all the position coaches, PK. What a shakeup we're in for.
Yeah. He'll take position coaches, no question.
Yes. And coordinators usually want to take one or two position coaches, and Kyle probably has to retain a couple people at Michigan. I think the running back.
He spoke of that. He said he would likely retain 2 or 3, and then the rest probably guys that have coached under him. Well, that includes both staffs, ironically enough, at Utah and BYU. Not just one, but both. This is so bizarre. What a story, man.
It's a great story. I felt like the caffeine was just going straight into my veins on Friday. I couldn't stop looking at the phone. Every national reporter was on it. Everybody was trying to find every corner of every angle of the story. It was awesome. That was fantastic.
I anticipated it happening once Dillingham the prior Saturday before.
We obviously don't know their list, and we get why DeBoer and Dillingham were up there. But after that, especially because Fish was apparently off the list because of Jaden Delores stuff pretty quickly. And it's like, well, I remember thinking, how many more candidates can be in front of Kyle? Well, it turned out none were. But I was just racking my brain like, who else will they go to?
Right.
One thing I did hear talking to people was that Eck at New Mexico. And I was told it'd probably be a hard sell for Michigan to sell the New Mexico football coach, but they should because he's awesome. It'd be a great example of losing a press conference but winning the hire. And that kind of stuck with me that, because he did well at Idaho, which, not a lot of people can say that. And now he's done well in New Mexico. And not a lot of people can say that. It's like, hey, this might not be a fluke. Maybe we're looking at the next, young, really good coach, and one of the big schools has to go for it with him. So I did think that was one thing. It'll be interesting to see. Utah State's out in New Mexico's league now, but if he's as good as he seems to be, he probably won't be there very long anyway.
Yeah, I think with that hire, you would simply say, what the heck?
There you go. The other things that we have talked about very briefly today, the Mammoth play the Nashville Predators tonight. The Mammoth, almost halfway through the season now, are sitting in the last playoff spot. The Predators are only 3 points behind them. January is a busy month because most of February they're off for the Olympics. So got to get a win, got to pick up 2 points, got to go now. If you don't do it in January, you're not going to be able to do it in February. You're going to be up against it by the time March rolls around. So got to earn those points right now, and tonight would be a great example.
I mean, that's where this team is at. Everything matters right now.
Yep.
Tonight's game matters. Literally everything they do on the ice, and obviously off of it to prepare for it, but I'm talking about the actual games. Every minute matters for them to achieve their self-stated goal, playoffs.
Yep.
And if there are no playoffs this year, then by their own acknowledgement, don't spin me, the goal against and goal for ratio. The Jazz tried to do that. The point differential a few years back. I don't want to hear that, man. Forget all that nonsense. I want to know, did you win? Did you lose? Especially when you put yourself out there on the line saying, this is what we've got to do this year. So if you're going to hold yourself to the standards, certainly we are, and I think the fans are, unless they have a massive amount of injuries and knock on wood and all that stuff. But we don't anticipate that. When injuries happen, we know Cooley's out right now, and get him back and see what they can do. I still think when we get to April, there will be postseason.
BYU beats Georgia Tech. We've talked a little bit about that game, 25-21. A great rally. Bachmeier couldn't or wouldn't, but certainly didn't run, but he threw for 325 yards. He threw the pick, and the special teams coughed the ball up inside the 10-yard line down there about the 5. It's a 4-point win, which actually was the Vegas point spread, but it's pretty easy to see how they could have, would have, should have won that game by 14 or 17. And as you pointed out earlier, PK, when you got him at 4th and 10 in the final minute, you probably need to get the stop, not give up the 66-yard pass. But they did force 3 incompletions, and then after that, get the pick in the to end the game. So they got out of there. They're 12-2. That's what everybody's going to remember.
12-2. Bravo. That. Right. An outstanding season. You lost to a team that obviously has a ton of money, which, I think that this is going to happen again. BYU, they've increased their money. They're going to have to do more because Tech has, for the foreseeable future, has the ability to do this over and over. And we'll see it again in the coming weeks once the transfer portal opens up next week, or this week, I guess, the end of the week. That we'll see where they just reload and they need a quarterback. Well, they're going to get a quarterback, and they may even get 2 for all we know. And whatever they need, they're going to get. The money is too overwhelming to ask these kids not to take it. So with that in mind, BYU's got to figure out a way to close that gap, and everybody does in the Big 12 for that matter, to close that. Forget about closing the gap with the Big 10 in the SEC. You need to close the gap with somebody right in your own neighborhood, and that's Texas Tech.
And the Jazz have back-to-back wins over the Pistons and Spurs, beating 2 of the better teams in the league. They are 6-6 in their last 12. That's great if you want to see them win and improve. It's a little worrisome if you'd like to see them hold on to their draft pick. And, you people know which camp you fall into. You're split. We've seen you.
Yeah, I think it's time to fire Hardy, man. Forget it. They're competing too hard every night now.
They've got the Celtics at home tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. DJ and PK, we're back with your feedback next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's time for your feedback. And PK, we've been talking about college basketball, guys from the G League and the NBA draft, and pros from Europe now joining teams midseason. There are no rules. Mark Few with the reaction I just saw this morning. Our lack of leadership is really shown. Now it's probably time to get some help from Congress, but they're more screwed up than the NCAA. They got to start listening to coaches.
Yeah, I saw that last night. Now, you got Izzo, you got Mark Few, Calipari, a little bit more of a shaky rep, but he's still a statesman in the game. So you got multiple guys talking about this, and something needs to be done.
BYU finishes 12-2, losing only 1 team all season. Pretty impressive, wouldn't you say? Snowman, yes. DJ with the bait.
What?
I know. That's it. You people in the media are negative all the time. Well, let's be positive about a team that just went 12-2. Their best record, and you can argue best season and all that, but their best record since Gary Crowton's first year. Quarter of a century.
I'm the bait guy.
Bait.
Get out of town.
Bait.
What are you possibly baiting on that?
I don't know.
We're applauding them. We're saying, way to go, guys.
I thought at the start of the year, I thought that 8-4, and instead they went 11-1. Now, obviously, they go to 12-2, but we didn't pick those games because we know who they'd be playing at that point. So great. Tony,
phenomenal run, back to back.
Yeah, Tony says Big 12 Player of the Year out, freshman quarterback running on one leg to still win and have a 12-win season is awesome.
Well, that was the great thing is that he wasn't running. A-Rod changed the game plan clearly right from the start. Come out and throw the ball. Use the tight end. Use the available guys. JoJo Phillips stepped up. I mean, you can go. The list goes on there. And so, A-Rod, let's give him credit for. All right, the guy's banged up a little bit, and you saw it early in the game. He took a run and he was limping. But this kid's a gamer. He's tough. And he can throw, find ways to get the ball in the end zone. They did. You talked about the interception inside the 5 there, and then the kickoff fumble. Mm-hmm. Well, they also on the first possession got down to the 1-inch line and came away with no points.
Yeah,
that's another
3
one right there.
Right?
Yeah.
Dan says, honestly, and Dan is an Aggie, by the way. He posts quite a bit. Honestly thought they might get 9 to 10 wins without Retzlaff. So, yes, I'm impressed with what they did with a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that they would get to 10. I can't go that high.
No, I was not either.
I thought they could still have a decent season because he's a smart kid, and they knew once the Retzlaff situation went down that he was going to be the guy, and they did everything in their power. And this Mitchell guy, who's off to Colorado State, worked with him extensively to get him up to speed. And so he needs to get credit, too. The credit goes to the individual mostly because he's the one doing it. But he did a great job. The coaching staff did a great job of getting him up, getting Bear up to speed to be ready to go as much as possible and then make the progression that he needed across the season. And it was really, it was wonderful. It was magnificent.
Reaction to Whittingham's move. Matt says it's a perfect place for Whit. Smash mouth football in the freezing cold, getting out of a town that he's lost touch with. Probably reminds him of Wyoming games. He's lost touch, getting him out.
Yeah, I don't see where he's
not sure they out of touch.
I mean, they just went 10-2. What the crap you talking about?
Well, they wanted 12-0.
Well, yeah, great.
Tony,
everybody does.
Tony, he's been touting the Big Ten for several years. I just didn't know it wouldn't be without the Utes. Nice.
And I don't think that the smash mouth football, I think that's an old rep. Now, they're still tough, and they play that type, but you got to be able to move the ball. As Yogi Roth, who now commentates for the Big Ten, and he was the foremost expert on the Pac-12, says you need an NFL quarterback. And so that's where it is at that level to be able to have the kind of success. Look at Ohio State. Look at the NFL talent on the offensive end that goes beyond offensive line and running back that they've been able to put in the league here in the last several years.
Aaron, so he damages his legacy in Utah as he first spurned BYU fans by never acknowledging BYU, and now he'll take players and coaches from both BYU and Utah, so Ute and Cougar fans will have something in common going forward. Equals not fans of Coach Whitt. Yeah, I'm not sure that's true.
Well, he's playing by the rules, so I don't know that you can criticize him for playing by the rules, but I get the emotional fan aspect of it. If he raids your staff, and I can argue more importantly, raids your roster, you're going to be upset.
Yeah.
And BYU got Tonavasa, and so all the Ute fans were upset at that, but they had no problem taking Dampier and Davis from New Mexico.
Yeah. All right, last word goes to John. It says, good for Kyle. I honestly don't think that's why he stepped down here, but things fell into place for him. Thanks for all you did. Best of luck, and in Scally we trust.
I think that's the attitude you have to have going forward. I agree with that 100%.
We're all done. Jake and Ben, well, at least Ben, coming up next right here on The Zone.